Creve Coeur District 76 Board of Education meeting is now called to order. Roll call, please.
Dibbens.
Here.
Cagle. Here. Catherine Reagan. Val Reagan. Here. Tyler. Here. Griner.
Here.
David.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the meeting tonight. Are there any comments from the audience on action items on the agenda? Hearing none, we will move on to the presentation by the curriculum director, Mr. Jokish.
Good evening, everyone.
We're ready.
All right, so I'm here tonight to give you an update on where we're at with the math curriculum.
Do you need lights on?
No, it should show up all right.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's good to get it
always
up.
good, yeah. There we go, all right. So I'm gonna start off just by giving you a little bit, just kind of the background of how this project started and what we've been doing with it, just kind of from the beginning. I guess the beginning really comes from the new Illinois Learning Standards, the Common Core. And I just want to remind you that there's an emphasis with the Common Core, specifically with math, you know, with the increase in focus to narrow and deepen the scope of everything that we do with math. Coherence, connect the learning within and across grade levels. That's a big one, particularly between the grade levels. Fluency, for students to have an increased speed and accuracy with simple calculations. Also in terms of math, for students to have a deeper understanding, so they deeply understand and can operate before moving on to the next spot. Application, where students are to choose the appropriate concept for each application in dual intensity. Students are practicing and understanding. And these new Illinois Learning Standards, they've gotten quite a bit of scrutiny from the media and from different places, which overall there's also scrutiny that we as educators need to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to prepare students to ensure that they're college and career ready. And part of that is looking at everything we do in education and looking for ways to improve and grow and enhance, you know, particularly with math in this ever-changing world. So while there has been some scrutiny behind the Common Core and the new Illinois Learning Standards, ultimately what the goal is for students to have a deeper understanding where they understand, you know, what they're doing and why they're doing it. And ultimately they're going to be more successful as a result. Also, along with the new Illinois Learning Standards, basically what we want is mathematically proficient students to be able to understand math concepts and operations, not just to know it, not just to say here's a problem, figure it out, but to have a deep understanding where they can explain here's why I'm doing this. To be able to carry out mathematical procedures, to devise strategies, again that goes back to critical thinking. They're not just doing, they're thinking. It's more about the why. It's not what you're doing, it's why you're doing it and why it's important. And along with that, they're able to use logic to explain, and that in doing so that they're going to see math as something useful. It's not just something, well, I have to do this because I want to get an A in the class, because the teacher says I have to do it, where it has a meaningful purpose that goes along with it. So with our math learning curriculum, basically when we set out last fall, our goal and our focus with this is one is to make sure that it was aligned. You know, all curriculums, it's important that they're aligned with one another. Math, it's more so than any other, because if you miss a concept in kindergarten, it's going to be more of a problem in first grade, and so on and so forth, and going down the line. It's critical that it's aligned, because if there's a gap in the learning, then the child's going to suffer as a result. So first and foremost, we wanted to make sure that we have an aligned curriculum, specifically aligned to the Common Core. Accessible, we want to make sure everyone has access to it. And when we started this process, what we did was we began using Google Docs and putting everything on there, so that everything we did, all the work we did, the notes and everything, anybody could access it. Because I know particularly with math, you know, when you hire a new math teacher, you know, they would come in and say, you know, what am I supposed to be doing? Well, gee, we don't really have a specific curriculum laid out, we don't have the materials there. You know, the goal for this was to make sure that we had all that information there. And when I talk about the new teachers and when they come into our district and we don't necessarily have anything, we're not uncommon, that's not uncommon at all. As I talk to different educators, a lot of the schools around here will say the same things. As I talk to educators, they say, yeah, we're just kind of piecing together, using whatever we can, because our district's not, they don't have the funding to purchase certain materials, so we're kind of making it up as we go along. So we're not the minority in that at all. Also, in developing this math curriculum, we wanted to make sure that it's very clear the skills to be taught. Again, that goes back to the Common Core learning standards, and also strategies for teaching. Again, making sure that it's aligned so everybody's doing something similar at the same time. And also to have common assessments, that's important also, so that we're assessing students similarly, so that way we know that, you know, formatively and summatively, the students have, you know, exactly where they're at and where they need to be going. So the first thing that we did was we sat down and met with each grade level team, and we met with every grade level team. We met with special education teachers when it was possible. Sometimes that wasn't always possible because it was during the school day, and so we may not have had enough subs, so a lot of times it was just 3 teachers per grade level. What we learned from this process was, first off, our teachers have really done a great job of individually aligning the math curriculum to the new Illinois Learning Standards. You know, we kind of basically, and we gave them some time and some resources, but for the most part, we just kind of said, here's the new Illinois Learning Standards, you go with it, you make sure that you're doing it. And, you know, and a credit to our teachers, you know, they really did a good job of taking that up on themselves and kind of running with it and doing a good job with it. Problem with that is, when you're doing that, you know, a lot of this was done individually, independently, so when you do that, it's not always going to be perfectly aligned. And, you know, in some cases, basically what teachers were doing was, well, here's the textbook that we had from 10 years ago, so we're basically just going to say that this matches up. Problem with that is, because of those older textbooks, they don't really emphasize the why so much, where they don't emphasize the explanation. Here's why we're doing it. Here's why it's important. They don't have the deeper understanding involved with it. So, and then also, because everybody was doing it independently, there were some inconsistencies, and sometimes we saw this even just within grade level, where one teacher was doing this and the teacher across the hall was doing something differently. That was fairly common, so you can imagine what that was like between different grade levels. Because for the most part, you know, there was some collaboration between our grade level teachers, but, you know, between the different grade levels, it really got stretched out. Biggest thing we came away with is every teacher came in saying, there's a glaring need to spend more time on math instruction. We need to spend more time on this. I don't feel like I have enough time to teach math. Just about every grade level unanimously told us that. And part of that is, you know, I think it started off with kindergarten, where the kindergarten teachers were saying, when they come to us in kindergarten, they're so far backed up, you know, they're not where they need to be when they come to us in kindergarten. And that continues in first grade. They're not where they need to be when they come to first grade. Every grade level had a similar complaint about that, where when the kids come to us, they're not quite where they need to be, and we need to spend more time on math. So that was pretty consistent across every grade level. With these math curriculum meetings that we were having, the focus for each one was to create a curriculum map and time frame, basically for each grade level. You know, what are you teaching, when are you teaching it, when the scope and sequence of making sure, you know, here's what we need to do first, here's what we need to do second, and being able to map that out across all the grade levels. We also started the process of just identifying units and aligning standards. So basically, you know, we decided that, you know, here's what we're going to do in the first week of school, the second week of school, you know, what's that unit going to look like? And also making sure that we've coordinated assessments. So at each grade level, there are going to be similar assessments, and that they would be assessed at similar times. Also, common unit plans, where each grade level is going to go through and create targeted standards, lesson sequence, desired outcomes, basically what do they want to accomplish with each grade level. What are the prerequisite skills? What do those students need to know before we begin this lesson, before we begin this unit plan? What advanced concepts are going to be necessary within the unit plan? What is the necessary vocabulary? That was one big keyword thing, was just the vocabulary. We're oftentimes teachers using different terminology. So when you go from grade level to grade level, it's, I don't know what that, I'm not familiar with that. So making sure that the vocabulary is consistent, that it's consistent with the PARC assessment and the MAP assessment also. And developing an assessment plan. And in doing so, we would go through and create individualized lesson plans for each grade level that would include learning targets, I can statements, an explanation of the rigor, and particularly the different resources and the different assessments that would be involved with that. So to be able to do all that with the curriculum map, the unit plans, and the individual lesson plans, we started pulling from different resources. First off, whatever the current textbook series, what do we have that we can use, that we can put into this plan? The Illinois Live Binder, that's created by the Illinois State Board of Education. If you go on their website, they've basically created a big plan that includes the curriculum map, assessments, and different things like that, similar to what I'm going to talk about here. Engage New York was a big resource. I'll get to that in just a moment. North Carolina Math, Georgia Math. When we did our curriculum alignment with East Peoria, like 6 years ago or something, like 6 or 7 years ago, Georgia Math was the first one, I think, or maybe the only one that said that they were aligned to the new learning standards. Pretty much everybody who used those complained that they didn't like them. I've not really heard much positive about them, and talking with East Peoria, they've really gotten away from that. They don't use Georgia Math at all. Other resources, and this was huge just because we've asked teachers to pull from so many different places and to kind of create their own curriculum. So in doing so, they've purchased a lot of supplemental workbooks, pulled resources from Teachers Pay Teacher, and different things. So we met several times where we started this process of creating and developing our own curriculum. And I think it was about probably late December, it came up to when we look at these different resources. We were spending a lot of time on this. It is a long, slow process, but when we looked at all the different resources, Engage New York was pretty impressive. And this came from the teachers saying, instead of creating our own units, our own lesson plans, our own assessments, why don't we can we just adopt Engage New York, which is also known as Eureka Math. The background for Eureka Math Engage New York, I'm a little bit sketchy on exactly where the funding comes from, but New York was part of a race for the top school, and so they received a lot of federal funding. So as a result, they had to design a curriculum, develop it, and not only that, they had to make it available for free. So any public institution, not-for-profit organization, we can use that and kind of do whatever we want with it for the most part. And Engage New York basically hired Eureka Math to do it. So it's kind of Eureka Math's plan, but it's called Engage New York. Basically, when I say Eureka Math, Engage New York, they're one and the same. I guess that's basically the main thing that you need to know.
Eureka Math is the for-pay portion of that. Eureka Math is a company that put together the platform for Engage New York. Eureka Math has additional resources, but it's a pay per seat program. Engage New York is still a free, provides, it's all online, but that's the difference. Eureka Math has more external resources with it because it is a pay-for service. Sorry, Mark.
And they're supposed to be non-for-profit, but boy, they're real anxious to sell you stuff. They were real happy to talk to me. What does Eureka Math Engage New York look like? Basically, it's just based on the theory that mathematical knowledge is conveyed most clearly and effectively when it's taught in sequence. And they try to break it into they like to think of it as a story, where it's like a big book and you're going through it chapter by chapter. And everything ties together. There's a certain time frame and sequence that works best. And basically, the way they break it up is into three components. They call it a story of units, a story of ratios, a story of functions, And again, the big emphasis was the standards were created, the standards were out there, and they looked at the standards and they said we were going to base our curriculum design on these standards, whereas what a lot of the textbook series are doing, and what a lot of places are doing is going, here's what we have, let's fit them to meet, so kind of, we can fit this to say it fits the standard, but it doesn't quite do so 100%. So Eureka was the one that really came forward and said, here's the standards, we're going to create an entire curriculum based around that. And then really put an emphasis on not just the here's what you need to do, but here's why you need to do it, and here's why it's important. And again, it's basically sequenced carefully so that it's a story that unfolds where it kind of all fits together from grade level to grade level, K through 12. And like it says there, these methods of instruction have been proven to work. They drive student understanding. That's a big, again, that's huge. Deep mastery of mathematical concepts. Why Eureka Math engaged New York? Again, we looked at probably several different things. And basically, Eureka Math engaged New York is just very comprehensive, user-friendly. If you Google Engage New York Math, there's a website. You can get lost there because there's just so much stuff there. It's very comprehensive. There's videos on there, a lot of different things on there. One of the selling points for me was whenever you look at incorporating a new curriculum, you want to find out what other schools are doing. So, I can go on the administrator website and say, you're using Engage New York, or what are you using? What are the different reports that are out there? One of those reports is at edreports.org, which is an independent nonprofit. Basically, it's a group of teachers that evaluate different math programs. And you can go on that website, it's edreports.org. And they rated Eureka Math really highly. So it's kind of like, okay, our teachers like it. It's very comprehensive, user-friendly. There's a lot of other school districts that are using it. I know District 150 has just started doing that this year. I talked to several different administrators who they're looking at adopting it because of the reasons that I'm pointing out here, because it's highly regarded, highly rated. Another benefit was instead of, for us as a staff with the math curriculum project, it no longer becomes about creating, but if we were to adopt Eureka Math, then we begin planning for next year. And a big selling point is it's free. If there's no real big cost involved, there's no immediate cost involved, there's different things that you can purchase that go along with it, but everything is free, it is available online. So that's a big selling point also. What Eureka Math Engage New York is and is not, it is using real-world problems. That's a big thing with the Common Core also. Real, meaningful, it has a purpose. Not just endless exercises, practice for the sake of practicing. Understanding why, not just memorizing it. Where you memorize something and you forget it the next day. It's understanding so that stays with you and that you're going to remember it longer. Explaining your reasoning. And with the PARC assessments, so much of that is basically going through and it's explaining different things. It's not even so much about getting the correct answer, it's about being able to effectively explain why you came up with that correct answer. Also doing math in your head, there's just less of a reliance on the calculator. Let's see. This just kind of gives a summary of how Eureka Math is still the top rated curriculum. There was a report done back in March 2015, and then they reviewed again in October, and they basically compared Eureka Math to, as far as I can tell, about every other textbook company. And based on those findings...
Go back for just a moment. Sorry.
Sure.
I just want to read about the competitors' average.
This kind of shows it, breaks it down for you. This is, the one on the left is from the March. This goes elementary school average by grades. They looked at My Math, McGraw-Hill, Go Math, Harcourt. Pearson, that's the one a lot of districts have went with because Pearson created the PARC assessment. But when you look at how it's reviewed, if you go on the EdReports website, it breaks it down like exactly what they looked at, the different things. But this just kind of gives you an overall score. It's not a deep explanation of why they scored better. But this is for the elementary, and you notice they got a 63 versus, let's see, in the fall it was a 63 versus 38. And then same thing, this is just middle school averages, very similar, where Eureka Math had 70 possible points, they got a 55 versus 19 or 24 versus the next textbook series. As you see, they looked at 5, 6,
Pearson is one that Solomon built.
Pearson is the one that develops the park assessment. So, like I said, a lot of the districts have went with the Pearson textbook thinking, well, if they're making the park assessment, we're going to buy their textbook and maybe we'll have better luck in the park assessment.
But the thinking was wrong there, because the textbooks were, Pearson is Preakins Hall, you can see over there, Preakins Hall Math, that's the textbook company. They didn't change their textbook. All they did is just added a few extra exercises and tried to incorporate the deep knowledge and understanding. They didn't change their textbook at all. So, you know, even though Pearson is doing the testing, that's a completely different arm of the whole company. So it was just a kind of a false logic to think that using their textbook would get you a better score on the park test.
And Pearson has a contract with the state of Illinois through 2017, so there's all kinds of rumors that after 2017 that it's going to be a different assessment, it won't be park. It could possibly be something like the math assessment. That's just speculation at this point, but there's been so many people unhappy with the park test. It's not went very well overall, just different things. And there's so much dissatisfaction with it, it kind of makes sense that they would go away from that. Okay, just like I said, Engage New York, Eureka Math, it's free, it's very comprehensive. You go on the website, it has all the curriculum maps, the overview, it has summaries of, like each unit, like I mentioned third grade up here, basically third grade it's 150 different lessons per grade level. Third grade just by itself consists of 2,129 total pages. There's 7 units in each, well, 6 or 7 units at each grade level. Third grade has 7, and like there'll be 20, say for example, 20 different units within lesson 1 or something like that. And as the teacher starts lesson 1, there'll be kind of an overview of, you know, here's the focus and the goal, and so that they have a better understanding of, you know, kind of what they're getting into. This is the kindergarten binder. I think kindergarten was the smallest, but that's the complete kindergarten. That just came straight from Engage New York website, where I went through Unit 1, printed it out, Unit 2, printed it out, and so on. Let's see. Eureka is happy to sell you different things such as professional development, parent homework helpers, videos. So they do have those available. They're not overly expensive. I know like the parent homework helpers are like the workbook for $15 that teachers can reproduce. So it's not extreme cost by any means. This is what each lesson looks like. It's just kind of a summary or breakdown of it. Basically it starts off with a different module. This is grade 3, module 1. So, and this just gives a summary of everything in module 1, such as topic A is going to cover multiplication and meaning of the factors. Topic B, division as an unknown factor problem. And you can read through that. Each module provides detailed topic and lesson information and a clear breakdown of class time spent. Again, it's very comprehensive, it's very thorough. Each lesson that it has, in third grade, has 141 different lessons. It goes along with it for teachers to complete throughout the course of the year. I know some are closer to 160, but between 140 and 160 is about how many there are at each grade level. With third grade, module 1, lesson 1, it's 11 pages long, just the first lesson is. And it's broken down into fluency practice, concept development, application problems, and student debriefing. And those 4 things are included with every lesson. And that's one of the things that talking to teachers who've done this, that kids like it because it's not all direct. You know, typically a lot of times with the math lesson you may get direct instruction, then you get homework, where this breaks it up into several different things throughout the course of the class period. And with each lesson, it breaks it up to like how many days. That's kind of more of a guideline. Like where on the left it'll say like it covers the standard multiplication and meaning of the factors. That's the standard that it's covering, and it says it should take you about 3 days to get through this, so there's 3 different lessons. Now, every classroom's different, every teacher's different, and they'll tell you that don't follow this just script for script. You want teachers to be able to make it their own and feel comfortable with it, so it's something usable that works for them in their classroom. This is kind of a guideline where they can kind of tweak to make their own. But on the right, that's what lesson 1 would look like. It says there, understand equal groups of as multiplication. So it's going to break out, a lesson's going to be 60 minutes for this. And just talking with different teachers who've been working on this, they'll say, you know, the fluency practice, it said 10 and it only took me 5 minutes. We were fine with it. But then we did the application problem, it said 10, it took us 20. So that's just kind of a guideline to base it off of. Again, every classroom is going to be a little bit different. With each one starts off with a fluency practice, which is just meant to be, they call it an adrenaline booster for kids. It's kind of, somewhat, I'd say, something to give them extra practice on. It could be like whatever you're getting ready to do. It might be simple multiplication where they're going to review 9 times 9 is 81. You know, in this case, it's just a 3rd grade lesson. This would be something they would do in the first week of school, where it says what the teacher's going through. Let's count to 20, forward and backward. Watch my fingers, and so then it has the students as a group going through 1 through 20, forwards and then backwards. Something I like about this too with the scripted is, especially at the junior high level, where some of the more advanced math, it's to get for a substitute teacher to be able to teach that effectively, it's hard. It's not easy, and not all substitute teachers are going to be able to do that. This scripts it out in such a way, I don't think the normal teacher is going to sit there and read, let's count to 20, I mean, exactly the way that they're doing it, but if there's a guest teacher visiting in the classroom, it's nice to have that available, and just should make things go a lot more smoothly. This is still lesson 1, so basically after you go from the fluency practice, then it goes to the application problem. And this is designed to be more of a review also, something that they've probably covered before. One of the big things that Eureka Math does, and that Common Core recommends, is just multiple ways of learning. Whereas, you know, in this problem it's there are 83 girls and 76 boys, how many total students? You know, traditionally what we've done is say 83 plus 76, where with Eureka Math and the Common Core, what they're pushing is to do multiple ways where you've drawn out that bar. Here's what 83 looks like. Here's what 76 looks like. So you have, you know, kids especially who are more visual learners. It's just a different way of helping them comprehend it, and so it shows them different ways. So that way they have a deeper understanding. And what I'm hearing from teachers is, as they're kind of introducing this for the first time, they're saying, you know, we did this visual, and I have kids who normally don't speak up in class that are responding because they just like this better. And they can relate to it, and it's easier for them. So I have had teachers tell me that just the different ways of learning is helpful.
You see, also, you're getting, just looking at this graphic organizer here, you're getting, you know, 3 different ways to organize that problem or to look at a problem. And right now you're looking, you know, the very first one, there's bar graphs already starting in that process. They're getting that other knowledge is coming through. Then you have the regular, as we would know, addition problem, and then you have a Venn diagram, and giving the student the opportunity to use their knowledge and how to get to the answer. The read, draw, and write process for problem solving is big through all of this, so the kids are starting to understand how these symbols and these things start to work together. So it's a really comprehensive program.
And I've shortened this for, like, this is a 1-page lesson. This is just like half a page. I've kind of shortened this so I don't have it all in the PowerPoint here. Start with the application problem, which is meant to be sort of a review of something they've done previously, to just kind of a refresher to make sure everybody's on track of where they need to be. Then each lesson has a concept development. This is really where most of the teaching takes place, or basically the new learning. A lot of times this is going to be a new concept, or it's introducing something new or different, or something that they may not have necessarily practiced. before. This is where new learning takes place. And they design it in such a way where it starts off real simple, and then throughout the lesson it gets increasingly a little bit more difficult. So it's real basic, and then it becomes more rigorous throughout the course of the lesson. Each lesson has a problem set. This is basically, again, it's kind of it's tough to see there on the PowerPoint, but they designed this to be simple to complex, where it's just to make sure, it's kind of a guide to see where students are at. A lot of times they design these to be done in class where it's interactive, to let the teacher have an idea of just kind of a quick assessment of where students are at. You know, are they getting it or are they not getting it? Each lesson has a student debrief time that are planned out, and with the Common Core, basically everything, you know, whether it's next generation science standards, everything, there's an emphasis on it being more student focused, more student centered, where students are having meaningful learning conversations as opposed to just the teacher up there talking. It's encouraging getting away from that model, and basically what the student debrief does, it just allows them time to review the problem set and discuss what they did and talk about it. And there's a problem that goes along with that, which each lesson is going to have an exit ticket. Again, this is more for the teacher's benefit, something where they do, it's not like they can't get out of the class unless they complete this, but basically it's something you do at the end to give the teacher an idea of, it's feedback to the teacher of where their level of understanding is at. So that way the teacher knows what do they need to start with the next day. So, you know, maybe everybody's got it, it's easy, no big deal, or maybe they are not grasping it and they need to go back and do some reteaching before the next lesson takes place. This is just an example of a homework assignment that you could possibly send home with it. This one happened to be 2 pages that went along with grade 3, unit 1, lesson 1. And one of the things that come up is how are parents going to be able to help their kids with it, because some of the different concepts that go along with it is a little bit different. And most of these lessons, if you go to YouTube, you just type in the unit and the lesson, and there's, like, you can go through and they'll show you exactly, here's how you do it. It's all drawn out. Eureka Math does, you can pay for that privilege also, but right now it's available for free on YouTube. Hopefully that'll stay there. I'm not sure. Whatever's on YouTube is not Eureka Math. I think it's some guy who just kind of went through, a math teacher in New York went through, and I'm going to do all these lessons. And also there are the homework helpers that go along with each one. And I would have copied the homework helper thing, but it wouldn't let you do it because that's a pay thing. So this I'm pointing out to you, this is just an assessment that went along with, this was on the 3rd grade Engage New York State test, where this was just one of the sample problems. The only reason I point this out is because as we were going through the curriculum, this curriculum math process, our teachers were looking at some of the different assessment items, and they were going, you know, I don't think any of my kids would be able to do that. That's beyond that. And this is a 3rd grade question. And if you look at the bottom, it says percentage of students statewide in New York who answered correctly, 77%. One of the selling points, or what got our teachers going, hey, we probably should really think about doing this, is because when they look at that and they're saying, none of my kids would be able to do that, and here in New York, 77% answered that question correctly. Because this actually came from the New York State test. So, and you can go online, and if you Google that also, it'll show you, it gives you a lot of different problems. It'll say, you know, not all of them are 77%, depending on the grade level and the question, but that gave our teachers an idea of, if 77% of the kids in New York can do this, you know, 77% of our kids, our graders, should be able to do that. Some of the questions that came up with this, will Engage New York be free indefinitely? If it's not, I'm saving it to the server, where it becomes a paid site, we have it. And it says on there specifically, if you're a non-for-profit group, you can use this however you want. And it just takes a long time to save because there's a PDF format, which is like huge, but then to save it in Microsoft Word, you got to go through each lesson. So like for, say for 3rd grade, where there's 141 different lessons, I have to go through and click on, here's Module 3, Unit 1, Lesson 1, open it, save it and go to there and then do it again. It's a long process, but we're gonna have that all on our server available. How will parents be able to help their children without a textbook? I kind of addressed that already, that where there is homework helper items that are available for parents. And again, all this stuff is online. And number 3, how long will this take to implement successfully? The schools that have done this say the first year is a little bit rough because it is more rigorous. It does take more time. There's a lot of terminology, vocabulary they're not used to. So it's kind of a learning process for the teachers as well as the students. But year 2 is much easier, and they said basically by year 3 it's pretty smooth, that they've really seen positive results. What I've done is with this curriculum process is basically I asked the teachers, okay, because some of the teachers were like, let's just do it, we want Engage New York, we want this. Others were kind of indifferent with it, or they didn't know enough about it. So with each of the grade level teams, I asked them to teach an Engage New York lesson and just come back with pros and cons. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? And each grade level is kind of a different spots there, depending on what they were doing. They just can't say, oh, we're going to teach Engage New York today. They had to wait for a stopping point to be able to do it. One cost that would probably be involved with whatever curriculum we go with is basically manipulatives. If a lot of these lessons, I think the one that I've included here talked about the use of student whiteboards, where there's a lot of specific manipulatives that go along with it. That's going to be true though for whatever curriculum that whatever math curriculum, they're going to encourage using different manipulatives with that. One of the things I ask teachers is how do we create more time for math during the school day, because everybody says we need more time for math, but we don't have more time for math. And then just any other feedback about the program. And that's all I have. Questions for me?
Mr. Giddens?
Yeah, I've been looking at math and that, and I got a little bit of a heads up, so I did look at the Engage New York at that, and seeing the Eureka math, how Louisiana blended in.
Mm-hmm.
I think the state of Louisiana made all their schools go to Eureka math.
Which is Engage New York.
Right, they're pretty much the same, and one charges, one doesn't. My biggest question is, how many kids an answer that we need is, how many kids in the district have internet at home? Because parents can't help, they can't go online if they don't have access. So we need to figure out a solution for that.
Yeah.
The other thing at the cost, it looks like you know, I'm getting bits and pieces off the internet, going through. They're pretty much the same except for one that's charging you has workbooks and everything else. Now, I didn't get too deep into it. I actually went and looked and took one class or something, just plain 3rd grade level, something I can handle, and seeing what they're changing. But looking at what it would cost the district to print everything out versus the cost of purchasing it.
Yeah, in Eureka Math, I actually have a sample one of that. I didn't bring it. Basically, they sell those workbooks. They're like $24 a piece per student. They say that like where we could buy those annually, the cost would be $20,000 a year. Where if we wanted to purchase, and I just did K through 8, there's a breakdown where if you wanted that I could get for you. But basically, if we purchase the workbooks annually, it'd be $20,000 each year. Now they say we can copy those ourselves, like we can purchase a workbook and copy it. We just can't send it to like Kinko's and have them copy it for us. We have to do it ourselves.
That was another question, that because they can cut the copy costs. So that's something that as a board member, you know, we're going to be asking costs when we pick this up. If they're pretty much the same. The other thing that I had noticed, video's running. The Engage New York, I can go on there, I can get the answer keys to everything. The kids can do that. So we need to put more weight on the tests, I think. So if there's something going on with some kids, the test is going to catch them. You might get A's on your homework, but if you're not passing the test, you're not going to pass the course. So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's not going to take long for the kids to
figure it out, yeah.
Yeah,
Especially if you have people helping.
when they go home and start looking it up and
Start
says,
searching
oh,
for it
wait.
anyway, yeah.
Our kids are very quick when it comes to something like that.
Most kids are, and they always have been, now
Yeah,
instead
sure.
of calling your, when you used to be, you had to call somebody and say, hey, what's the answer to that? Now you go online and find it, so, and that's what, the schools kind of all over the place are putting more of an emphasis on what's going on in the classroom, emphasizing that more than, you know, the homework aspect of it.
But I did like seeing it online for the parent, and they may have to back up and read it a couple of times or whatever, but there's a place, and you showed something else. But they can see what's being taught, and if there's a child sick that day, they can see what's being taught that day or whatever. Or have their child do it if they're later in the afternoon, whatever. But it's the kids, and I'm looking at the kids that just don't have internet access being left behind.
Well, doesn't Comcast offer a, like, for children who are underserved, it's a very cheap internet access, like $10 a month.
Okay,
They do offer it to families, as long as you apply. It might not even be that much, but it's very reasonable. It's through Comcast, and they will offer it.
Yeah, they sell computers cheap too, where you get like a,
Right, the family could get it if they are
Yeah.
underserved.
I remember seeing that.
We can put the information out, but we can't make them do it.
No, we can't make them purchase it, but I think it's very, I thought it was either free or like $10 a month.
But most parents have cell phones too, so they could watch the YouTube on their phone.
And there is a local library. East Peoria is open later, I think, than Creve Coeur, but the libraries do have internet access as well.
I mean, those are the questions, and then, those are my biggest questions in that, is just to help the kids, they gotta have access to it, otherwise, we're gonna lose a group of kids.
We probably truly have very few people that don't have some type of internet access, whether it's through cable, internet, or through their cell phone.
And yeah, I guess we would have to survey.
And not just survey, but keep track. Make sure that all of a sudden we don't, the teacher finds out the reason why the kid's all of a sudden is having trouble, they don't have internet at home anymore. For
well,
whatever reason.
especially the first year, if we did something like this, you'd really want to, you know, have, you know, a lot of schools do parent nights or something like that. Making sure that we're sending information home, because a lot of times the terminology, it'll be, create a tape diagram, and parents are going, I don't know what a tape diagram is, and, you know, tape diagram is just kind of a, it's like a line graph that's broken into blocks. I mean, it's all it is, it's pretty simple, but it's a different terminology, and so it's kind of, it's third grade math, and I don't know how to do it. And it's not that difficult, but just, we've got to be able to communicate with parents exactly, you know, what this is and how you do it.
That's gonna be your biggest issue, is that you've already lost some of the parents once they get past second grade. It's not that they're incompetent, it's just that the terminology has changed and they're struggling once they get the homework home.
Right.
And you hit one of the words, it said tape diagram, I'm like, what are they talking about? And all of my college was math, but we never called anything a tape diagram.
Well, now they don't borrow anymore, I forgot what it's called, but it's not, it's like reorganizing
The-
or something.
The vocabulary and everything else
They
is
use that
gonna,
stupid line graph, and it's like, why should we just add it? No, you have to do the line graph.
Right.
Whatever.
Again, it's a terminology, it's, but
Exactly.
Mr. Jobish had a good point. Parent nights, bring them in, explain it to them.
This is what we're gonna do.
And periodically, every, whatever, 4 weeks or 5 weeks, might have to have parent night for explanation.
but if we could get the survey on, before it's presented to the board, how many people do have internet access at home, that may be useful information we find out.
Could be. I also want comments from all the teachers.
Well, what we did is we took that information from the meeting we had with labor, labor management, and heard that. So what I did is created a survey for the teachers to get their input after they've taught at least 2 lessons in Engage New York. And like Mr. Jokic said, some teachers were in the middle of lessons and units and all of that. So I gave them until the 25th to fill out the survey. And so we did it all online and sent it out to everyone. So not just, I kind of broke the survey up. And so it is, if you taught math and if you teach math and you were involved in the consultant grade level meetings, there was a number of questions about that process. If you teach math, but you were not involved in the consultant meetings, but here's about Engage New York. I have a bunch of questions about that as well. So kind of took a two-pronged approach to the survey. So hopefully it'll give us some good information about how they like it, whether they think it's a good program, whether they were heard in the process. Because I was very disappointed when I was told that teachers felt that this was being pushed upon them, because that is not what the intent was. I wasn't in every one of these consultant meetings, obviously, but the ones that I did sit in on or come in on, it was discussions. And we started, like Brad said, we started with, what are you doing now? Let's take that and standardize it and make sure that we're hitting the rigor, we are hitting the depth, we're getting the understanding, and bring in other resources. But let's standardize it, like, kind of like Engage New York has all of those, it's scripted. That's why it's 2,000 pages. It's scripted. We weren't expecting that from teachers, for them to do that, but they had already created a lot of this stuff from their work in East Peoria. East Peoria gave us the bones, we were putting the meat on it. Well, that was step one, and through that, it came as a grassroots effort. Why are we doing all this work if it's already done for us? So I was disappointed in hearing that, so I wanted to hear from the teachers. Okay, do you feel that this was pushed down on you? Was this something that you had no say in? Blah blah blah. So I asked a bunch of those type of questions. So that information from the teachers will be summarized, and we'll have that for the next meetings that we have when we're ready to bring this to the board. So it'll be interesting.
And grade levels are at different points too. I had a teacher who came to me today and said, we just did this for the first time yesterday, and so far it's been going great. We love it. Your grade's only been 2 days. And then another teacher says, yeah, we're not in the middle of a unit. We won't be at a stopping point until about March 1st, so we can't do it till then. So, yeah, so different grade levels are at different points when they're ready to try this out.
So what are we teaching this year? What East Peoria gave us to begin with?
It's a combination of things. Because East Peoria was mainly Georgia math, and we kind of worked with them on that, and they immediately went away from it. Like the next year, they purchased a textbook series, at least for K through 6, they did. So it's kind of different. Like I said at the beginning, each grade level is kind of doing something different in the way that they pull their resources. Some are relying more on the textbook. Some are using the Illinois Live Binders. Some were already pulling from Engage New York. It's really a mixture of what each grade level is doing. Basically, we've had them say, here's the Illinois Learning Standards. You make sure that for math, you make sure that you're hitting this, and we need to know when you're doing it. So at that point, we weren't concerned about what resources were being used. So now we hope to standardize that.
Because even so, logically, if each grade level's behind, the example you gave, week 1, 3rd grade, here's your script. If our kids are that far behind, it's not gonna work. We're gonna have to back it up, don't you agree?
And that's for every school that's done this, the first year is some of the learning process. It probably takes, they say first year's a little difficult, second year gets much, much easier. By 3rd year, you're smooth sailing. And I know, just looking at the kindergarten, what they're asking the kindergartners to do on the first week of school, I'm like, oh my God, that's a lot to ask for them. that's in the binder in there. I was like, that's to the kindergarten teachers, so they're going to be able to, with the discussion part of it, it's like, so you're about the first week of school, your kindergartners are going to be able to discuss what they did. They're going to be at that point, and a lot of them aren't going to be there yet. So.
And I don't.
No, but if we never ask them, they never will.
Right.
And that's the point.
They were getting
That's
that
the
stuff
point.
over to bring those in.
It's the expectation.
You set high expectations
Well,
for
yeah,
them,
especially
absolutely.
kids that go to Creve Coeur, their kids don't have here.
Out of curiosity, do we know what high schools are using? Are they using this as well, since it's a K through 12 program?
To find that out, I'm not certain what they're using. I know Central is doing Engage New York in 7th and 8th grade. But they're doing Envision Math K through 6. But yeah, I'm not sure what the high school is using.
The high school is using in our CLCs, the meetings where the feeder schools and the high school kind of come together. And there's a math teacher from each of them. And even the high school math teachers are doing the same thing. I pull in everything that I need to hit those standards. I don't have a textbook, I bring things in, because even the textbooks don't address the standards. That's what we're finding. And so nobody's just buying a book anymore. They're out there searching, and teachers are putting a lot of effort into this. And that was acknowledged. That was what the consultants, why we started this, was to acknowledge what the work that the teachers have already put into this. We just wanted to make sure that all 3 first grade teachers were on the same page. And let's standardize that page so it looks the same. Let's use the same words, like Brad's saying. You know, if one teacher's using number and the other teacher's using numerals, when they get to 2nd grade and they hear numerals, well, the kid that learned numbers is like, what are you talking about? You know, they kind of fall through no fault of anyone's. That's what we wanted to kind of piece together so that it was seamless. And then, you know, the up and down. You know, District 150 took a lot of criticism. You know, these kids are, you know, you're just dumping them in there and they can't do this, and there's no safety nets and all of that. And yeah, it is. But they took it as, we're setting the expectation for our kids, and we're going to help our parents, and we believe that this can move our students forward. And that's what New York, it's not just New York City, engaged New York City, but it's engaged the entire state of New York. But obviously, in the city of New York, you know, 3 million kids. And after 4 years, is it 4 or 5 years they've been doing this? 77% of their kids were able to meet those problems. So the research is there.
So question, so if our kids are calling it numerals or whatever, that when they get down to East Peoria, are they calling it numbers, or are they calling it?
That's why I
Well,
asked the
by the
question.
time they get to that age, they would probably know it's the same thing. But when you're in 2nd and 3rd grade, it's pretty hard to think what is numerals and numbers. But
Right.
So I'm
by the time you're in
asking
high
for the
school.
5th, 6th, 7th graders, is that?
But that's what I mean, is that even at the
are
high
we
school,
standardized enough to get?
not unless all 3 feeders are gonna do the same thing. And I don't know that we're gonna, you know, do the same thing, you know, we get close.
Okay.
You know, Robine does, was it?
Georgia Math, don't they?
Math your way.
She said that there's a textbook that they use, and then that she pulls from a variety of different resources. I talked to her last week, and it's kind of the same thing, where I'm just like, you know, she was kind of making it up, and
Well, I think Mrs. Clark, when we were at that meeting, had said that a lot of schools do just like K through 6, because when you get to 7th and 8th, some of them start the algebra, the geometry, the enrichment math at some of the schools. So they don't necessarily have a K through 8 program, because you are starting the upper level math courses, like the high school. So,
That's what I was wondering, the transition from the 8th grade on to.
well, a lot of 8th grades are doing the algebra, freshman algebra.
well, that's probably why they broke Eureka Math up into kind of 3 different units. It says here's K through 5, and then they kind of tweaked it, shifted it a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, it's the same program, but they don't look the exact same. They're similar, but they've got differences.
Okay, so I heard 2 questions. Internet internet access of parents. I don't know how, we'll have to figure out how to ask that question and get a response back. That's gonna be the hard part. We can ask the question by sending it home. It's getting it back, it's gonna be difficult, but we'll work on that. And then the cost of like workbook or purchase service through Eureka Math or some other type of program.
Photocopying it, isn't that the other thing? Photocopying it.
Right, because it's free, but you got the cost in
No
it.
more than what we're doing now.
Right.
You know?
But-
Really.
Last
Right.
month,
Because we don't have textbooks now.
Yeah.
last month, Park kicked out, put out like 800 some questions from the 2014 test.
Yeah.
And when I went to school, my math, I was expected to put down the right answers. Well, one of the first questions that they had in 2014, the child had to explain why the answer was wrong to that problem.
Right.
They didn't solve the problem, they had,
It's understanding of the
there was 3
concept.
questions.
It's
Yes.
not whether or not you can add 2 plus 2, but how did you get that answer? And then for the little kids, it's draw your thoughts.
And that was a 3rd grade question, I thought, boy,
Right. So
okay,
what?
We'll also need the results of the survey you talked about with the teachers.
Yes.
yes.
That's
As
what I'm
long as they're
doing.
making a list.
And I'm sure this doesn't cover everything. But, okay, this Engage New York, it may not be perfect. I'm gonna say you're not gonna find the perfect curriculum to follow. But at that point, we would all be on at least the same street, and, you know, we could get it, maybe going to the same house.
I kinda like what he showed us.
One last thing for me. During Christmas break, you know, we got back to park scores and everything else. And after Christmas, I don't know, it was just bothering me one day. So I sat there. I've actually reached out and contacted 10 school districts, and I'd like to share it with you. I don't know what to do with it. I'm afraid to just throw it out there, and people, it can muddy the water. I don't want to muddy the water. You're the man running this. 2 of the districts, one is running Eureka Math, the other one's running Engage New York, along with everything else. But I can give you that information that they had sent me, all of it if you'd like. I just email you a copy of it,
Sure.
of how they responded.
But the districts running Eureka and Engage New York, how long have they been running it and what were their park scores?
I didn't go in to ask a bunch of questions, I just asked, what have you got? That's the reason why I know Robine and East Peoria is not doing the same thing.
Mhm.
Are they running textbooks? Textbooks?
I didn't go in and ask questions, I just asked,
Okay.
what are they doing? I need an expert
Yeah.
to ask specific questions, target the right districts, and get the right answers, because I can get the answers, but that may not mean anything.
And you get the park
And
scores off.
go beyond what you said you may be able to find out who's using Eureka Math, who's using, and why did you choose Eureka Math over Engage New York?
Well, the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but why did they choose to pay and, as opposed to the,
It could have just been that they didn't want to bother reproducing.
but see, we're
worksheets
guessing, and
themselves. I mean,
again,
Yeah.
just ask, a simple email. Because, I mean,
They didn't investigate it now that New York was free.
It could be.
just,
Yeah.
we're getting ready to step on something. As many answers as you got, instead of guessing, let's ask them. Not just the ones I've asked, but I'll email you the ones
Sure, that'd be great.
almost.
I'd like to know the test scores and how long they've been doing it.
Do you want Mr. Gibbons to share the information with everybody?
Yeah,
That way you can go look it up on your
or
own.
not you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is that all
I'll
right
look
with
it
you?
up.
Yeah, and you can go online with some of them, they'll give you a lot more detail on their own websites, other districts.
But if their scores are higher, it's worth looking into,
They're
what are they
all higher.
using? But you've also got to do our mobility.
Mhm.
And
Because I can tell you what,
big
without
piece of
even
it.
looking at your data, if it's a school that has a few amount of high poverty students, their scores are gonna be here. If it's a high poverty district, they're gonna be lower. I mean, you can look at that universally, it's,
But some
But-
scores had higher poverty levels than we did, and they scored better on tests.
yeah, it doesn't happen exclusively, but overall, you look at.
Overall, around here, we scored worse, and we do not have some of the poverty rates that they had.
I know last year, we were, of the grade schools, maybe it was 2 years ago, we were, of the 46 grade school junior high districts, there was 46, we were 45th in poverty, and we were about at 72%. And I think back then, we were like 39th, and that was back when we did ISAT, we were like 39th, it must have been 2 years ago. And I think the only school with a lower socioeconomic group was Pleasant Hill.
And they scored better.
Now they scored worse than us 2 years ago at least.
Well, maybe it was 3 years ago, they scored better than we did, way better. And District 150 at one point scored better than we did as well. And they have a higher poverty rate.
No, they don't. Actually,
Not
district-wide,
Not district-wide.
yeah, they do not.
They
I mean, you
don't?
can look at the different
I'll have
schools
to look.
individually.
No.
Where, yeah. I mean, certain schools within District 150, they might be
They
at
have,
90% poverty
Yeah,
rate,
they
then
do.
another school might be 50, and when you average them all out, we have a higher poverty rate than they do. Because I know 2 years ago, we were like at 73.
You're 80%.
yeah, we're.
Is that 2 years ago?
We're at 80% this year.
80% this year.
But I can show you, I can go to
It's
the
got
report
new-
card and show a
new
number of
census,
districts that
and
outperform
it's
us
probably gonna go,
with a much higher. We had schools outperforming us with
When
100%
when I lived, it
poverty.
was like 70.
Do we need to get a good
Locally?
curriculum and figure
I didn't
out
look
what
to see where they
else
were
we need
at.
to do?
But locally,
I'm thinking Creve is.
Creve Coeur is the lowest ranked in the county.
Prepaid.
Mhm.
Well, Rounder said he.
We also have the highest poverty in the county,
They
probably by
voted for it.
a large amount.
Give them an extra
Like,
year.
if you look at the different, like, say, I just think South Pekin's probably one. I just remember I went through that 2 years ago, and there was like 46 different schools. It was like South Pekin was 33rd in poverty, and they had 33rd on test scores. And it was pretty exclusively, the top 10 schools. It was like Dunlap had the #1 overall, and they were like third in poverty. And it was like the top 10 were all in the top 10. It was pretty. There's some fluctuation. I think give or take a few points, but pretty exclusively where the school ranked at in terms of poverty, that's where they ranked at in terms of their test score compared to other schools. You can give or take a few spots of points, but for the most part, it's very consistent.
Because they say it's consistent because they don't have the resources and the access. But we're not the same as other schools. We have a lot of resources that those schools don't have, that's usually impoverished. Like, our classrooms are nice. We have computers. We have
Low
things,
class sizes.
we have low class sizes. Some of the other schools that are impoverished have higher,
We have to
ratios.
look at each one in
They have, they don't
independently.
have computers. Heck, some of the schools have bats in them. I mean, it's not the same. So that's because of poverty. They look at the resources they have and also their home environment and those resources. But, I mean, we do offer a lot of resources that the schools who are not impoverished offer their students.
Yeah, it's true. I just know when at times I've had to pay a home visit, and I'll go there, and it's, might be they're living in, one bedroom apartment,
Exactly,
and
their home
there's,
life.
You see that, and it's not hard to figure out why the kid's struggling.
Right, that's what I mean, their home life, it doesn't have that, but I mean, the resources at school, we offer it.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Jokish. It was very informative.
I got that last.
And Mr. Giddens will email us all with his information.
Thank you,
Okay.
Randy.
All right.
I can't say it in any email, just email you what I sent. But I didn't ask questions, I just asked,
Okay.
what is your material, what material are you using?
And that way if they
And
want to go
then-
look.
Because I didn't know what was going on in school. I'm completely blind, we didn't know what was going on.
And that's good to ask what the other districts are using. I reinvent the wheel. All right. Action items. We need a motion regarding policy. Mr. Giddens, would you like to do that?
Okay. I'll make the motion to approve the second reading of the adoption of policy revisions. 6:110, programs for students at risk for academic failure and or dropping out of school and graduation and city programs. And 6:280, grading and promotions.
We have a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Giddens,
Aye.
Pagel. Aye. Dalregen.
Aye.
Tyler.
Aye.
Griner.
Aye.
Bailey.
Aye, motion carried. Need a motion regarding the APs.
I'll make the motion to approve the adoption of administrative procedures 6:280-AP, administrative procedures evaluating and reporting student achievement, and 6:280-AP 2016, academic standards for grading and promotions.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Questions? Comments? Roll call, please.
Giddens,
Aye.
Pagel. Aye. Dalregen.
Aye.
Tyler.
Aye.
Griner. Bailey.
Aye, motion carried. Need a motion regarding the payments list?
Make a motion to approve the payments list dated February 3rd, 2016.
Second.
Any questions? Comments? Any questions, Mrs. Weaver?
No, I figured it out.
All right.
I had some highlighted, but
All right.
thank you.
No? Roll call, please.
Giddens.
Aye.
Pagel. Aye. Dalregen. Aye. Tyler.
Aye.
Griner. Bailey.
Aye, motion carried. Need a motion regarding the agreement with the library.
Make a motion to approve the cooperative agreement between Creve Coeur Public Library District and Creve Coeur Public School District 76 for the students' use of the public library by LaSalle Elementary School during the 2016-2017 academic school year.
Second.
Discussion.
So,
Yeah,
just to clarify, so if a student loses a book, so if they don't return it, we pay the library for that and then we charge them when they register? Is that right?
That's what is proposed. Mr. Aldridge is going to,
What is
That's not what we do, is it?
current?
that's what Mr. Aldridge is going to inform us about. I emailed him last night and asked the same question.
Okay, that's why I have all these things that are highlighted.
I did too.
It's like, wait a minute.
And I may or may not know
Okay.
much of it, so. Okay, what was the first question?
Well, it was if the student loses the book.
First of all, okay.
Okay.
Is this agreement for life?
Okay.
I see no dates, no clause for negotiation for at a future date. Correct, there is no date. I would suggest that if it is necessary to have an agreement to designate a particular
Oh,
period or term.
It does have a date.
it does have a date. I missed it.
It's
Sorry.
2016-17 academic
Yeah.
school year.
It does have a date.
Okay,
Well, there you go.
all right. First question answered.
Is it really an agreement or just a set of guidelines? Several of the items are guidelines or issues that can be addressed with the principal instead of a written document. I just received this. There was no discussion. It came to you the same time it came to me.
Okay.
There was no contact, there was no prior discussion about any of this. I was totally unaware that something like this was coming. So I asked one of the library trustees to kind of fill me in. And this was not the intent of the library district to come to us like this. What it was supposed to be was to engage in discussions with the library and the school district to talk about some of the things that the library has some issues with. And this is what we got.
I got the email we got to say that they have to have an intergovernmental agreement for the library, something to do with, didn't we get an email that said that
I did.
a long time ago?
Well, this does not fit into anything like
It
that.
doesn't look like an intergovernment, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying,
Right.
I thought that's what this was, is an intergovernmental agreement. But then, I had some
It was-
clarification questions too.
How it was presented at the library trustee meeting, I don't know, but the trustee that I talked to, this came not
From their board.
well, it came from, the board directed the library director to engage the conversation.
Okay.
And this is what transpired. Some of the library trustees are not happy about this. Their meeting is tonight as well. They didn't see that there was any kind of back and forth, give and take, because it just showed up. So, but anyway, I know we have, we
I
still
want some
have,
answers first.
I want some answers too.
I know we still have a line item to allot the library $2,000 per year, but nothing else in writing. That is not correct.
Okay, but do we have it in writing?
We don't have anything in writing, and we don't have $2,000 allotted to the library either.
I was gonna ask that.
No,
We used to, I thought from
No.
a grant every year we gave them.
There is no grant.
1,000 or 2,000.
We just flat gave them
Is it
2,000 a
in-kind?
year.
No, you haven't.
In-kind donations.
You have not.
Since when?
Since when?
Since many years, you have not given
Okay.
$2,000 ever,
Okay,
and $1,000 well before the previous superintendent. That ended.
okay.
So we haven't given them
9
any
years ago.
money.
So, no, that's
I
not
got it.
true, just let me
Oh,
go
okay.
on. So, there was $1,000 that was allotted for the library. Okay, it's not a $2,000 line item, it's in a line item
Okay.
that has a $2,000 portion in it, but it's not just $2,000 to the library.
Okay.
All right,
So
so-
the 2,000 I seen was correct, it's just, okay.
It's not all to the library.
I got it, all right, got it.
So, the
Okay.
budget line item includes supplies for Parkview as well.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
For years, there was a verbal agreement of $1,000, and then that verbal agreement kind of went by the wayside. And when I came, my first year here, I started, or reinstated the $1,000 and bumped that up to $1,500 as a catch-up for the prior years when it had not been given. Okay, so I've been playing catch-up with them, as far as this is concerned. Now, yes, out of our budget, yes. I've been giving them $1,500 every year, rather than
2 or
1,000.
3 years.
The 3 years that I've been here. Because you had 5 years where they didn't get anything, so I was sympathetic to what I was hearing. Number 2, we've been reimbursing the library for all lost books. No, there is no reimbursement for lost books. There's a $1,500 stipend given to the library for books. For whether they replace the lost books or they use it to buy new books, that's really up to them. Well, that's one of the things in here,
Yeah, it says it in here that they do.
that they are supposed to have a library card, and they're supposed to live within the Creve Coeur Library District, and if they don't, then they cannot use the Creve Coeur Library. So if we do that, we have to start checking the residency of our students and compare it to the library district, which is different than the school district.
Right.
So, if that's something that they're trying to go to, we're gonna have a real hard time here. And you
Well, I
may,
thought it says in here they'll have 2, one for the school, so if you're within the school, you could check it out, but the one, if they wanna check it out after school is when they have to have their own and do their residency, and the parents have to come in, it says right here. It
Because
doesn't,
they
it
Okay.
doesn't
check
say,
it
okay,
Yeah,
Right,
they
it
don't have
doesn't-
check residency, if they're a student, they have a
Right.
student card.
that's what they said, if they're a student, they have a student card, it's not a big deal. They would have 2 separate ones.
They're after hours.
can we
Right.
hold a report card for non-payment of fines?
Well, that's what I was, yeah,
Well, you used to, but it's not effective anymore.
we did,
You used to.
when I was a school,
You used to, but it's not effective anymore. Because parents can go online, they go to Skyward, pull kids' grades down, and blah, blah, they don't need your card. So it's ineffective, it's not gonna work. Have we added library fees to registration fees? No, there is no designation of library fees in our registration fee for school. So, those are the answers to the questions.
yeah, I kinda don't wanna do that.
I don't see how they can, like number 8, how they can say.
That's what I have too. It's a separate agency. I just don't see how we could add library fees. And some of our parents and kids are reduced, and I just don't think we could do
Well, and why should we do all the accounting work to deal with this money coming in? It's not,
Well, exactly, a separate agency entity. I think, you know, if it becomes a problem, then we have to look into something else.
I mean, it's like the water company, you know. If you haven't paid your bill by registration, we're supposed to collect the water bill, you know, money, I mean,
we just
it's,
can't start that.
no.
Yeah.
Okay, we suggest maybe we sit down, a few of us sit down with the library board if they want to pursue this. Otherwise,
If they
it's
want
the
to,
pleasure of the board to table it.
if they want an intergovernmental agreement, I can see that they need an intergovernmental agreement, but again, I don't understand
I
those.
agree, some of this is,
And
Some
the
of it's overstepping, I think.
I would agree with
$2,000 worth of children's, I mean, books, I mean, I don't know if we want to commit to that, because we're giving Partridge $2,000, I mean.
what do you know, and it depends on the year. You know,
I mean, I think I don't mind helping them, I agree, but I just kind of, I don't know.
So administration is out of this and the board's gonna handle it, is that what I'm hearing?
We're tabled.
We're talking, we're discussing.
You want to discuss this with the library board, is what I heard.
If their board wants to talk to our board, that's fine.
Okay,
Otherwise,
administration's out.
either the administrator can go over and talk to the librarian. I don't care, whatever you would like to do.
I give him $1,500, I don't care what he does with the library.
Well, and I mean, this isn't a document where we have to sign anyway, so I don't think
No, it's
it
not.
matters. I mean, they're getting the $1,500.
I think it's gonna, they're meeting tonight, and I think there's gonna be some backtracking here, so it probably would be appropriate for the board to just set this aside, make it a non-issue until we get further clarification.
Let them contact us further.
Sounds good.
They can contact you and you'll let us know.
Yeah.
Just one comment, keep an
Yes.
open mind, we do not have a library in this building. That is our library.
And it's nice that
We
the
don't,
kids
and
get
we
to
don't have
go.
space, so I mean,
Yes.
we have to keep this strong
Yeah, we have, I agree, we need to keep,
instead of be obnoxious.
no, we need to keep agreement, but I don't know if we could do the $2,000 a year. Right, I mean, I don't know if we can commit to that, that's what I'm looking at. I don't know if the district can commit to the 2,000, nor do I think we should tie in report cards with the student fines.
No, I
And
see the report cards and the
registration.
registration, I see that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the board going to the library and telling them what they're gonna do, you know, while our kids are
Right.
there. We don't get involved in that, so.
How many
There
years
needs
ago
to be a
was it
separation.
that
a
we
little
met
bit.
with them? And that's where I came up with this. We met with the library board several years back because of Johnny and Susie's fines became a real issue. If Johnny had fines, then Susie couldn't check out a book.
Nobody in the family could.
Right, and so it finally got down to where 3 of their board members and 3 of our board members met and we got it all straightened out.
But it looks like this they can, because each student has their own card.
Right,
which is
right,
good,
which is good, yeah. Okay. Would someone like to resend their motion?
I'll resend my motion.
You wanna make a motion to table?
Although, yeah,
Okay, no.
I'll make a motion to table it, but I sympathize with, if they have huge fines and they're not getting their books back. I mean, maybe we need to talk to them and see what we can do. Because, I mean,
You're assuming
again,
that we're not doing anything.
well, I don't know, I'm not, exactly, there's no communication. So I don't know what we're doing, I don't know if they only have $1,000 in books that's not being sent back and we're giving them $1,500 a year. I mean, that has to be looked at, but if they're losing $3,000 or $4,000 in books a year, it's a problem. So, I mean, obviously this document just didn't come out of thin air. So to me, there probably is a problem and we need to resolve it. So, I mean,
We need to know the information
but
before
we need to know the information,
and
right,
work with
before we
them.
get act on it. I just don't wanna table and think it's a non-issue, but I just, if there is an issue, I think we need to.
It's thousands of dollars they need to let us know.
Right, exactly, we need
I
to
mean,
look into it.
do they let you or the principals know this?
Mr. McCormick has a good relationship with Mr. White. Yes.
And he lets them know when there's a lot of fines.
I don't know if he calls him up and say, Johnny's got, 20 cents in fines or anything like that, but they have been working well together.
And I guess I'm not as concerned about the fines as his lost books. Because then that's not recovery.
That's what the $1,000 was for. was
I
for those
understand that,
matters.
but I just, is it running more than that? Is that why he's asking for 2,000? I don't know. That's what I'm saying, maybe we need to look into it. But let's table it.
Until we can get more information.
Right, but I don't want him to brush it off either.
Mrs. Reagan made the motion to table. Do we have a second?
Second.
Giddens,
Aye.
Kegel,
Aye.
Valregan,
Aye.
Tyler,
Aye.
Griner,
Aye.
Bailey.
Aye, motion carried. Need a motion regarding the health, life, safety resolution.
Make the motion to approve the Health, Life, Safety Emergency Board Resolution.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
I had one question, I meant to send it to you, it was about the bonding. Says it doesn't pay, the bonding is not covered or something? Bond, item number 5 on the first page. Bonds are not included in our price. What are they telling us? No, on number 5.
F6.
Actual letters from,
Oh.
That's not the resolution. That's the next
Am I on
item.
the wrong
Asbestos
one?
abatement.
That's the next
Oh,
item.
health, life, safety, I'm
That's
sorry,
yeah.
it's the next one.
That's the next
Okay.
slide, yeah. That's it.
Okay.
Any questions on this? Mr. Aldridge could enlighten us, I suppose. It's,
What we have to do, in order to get around, to get a waiver, the bidding requirements and having to go out for bids with contractors, to get an expedited Illinois Department of Public Health and the EPA waivers of the 10-day notices for the asbestos. This health, life, safety resolution allows us to do that, and it shows that health, life, safety funds are available, bidding requirements will be exempt. The reason for this is, because of the repairs and constructions that are needed due to the water damage and exposure to asbestos. So the State Board of Education gave us the waiver. We just have to approve the resolution, then the architect can put together all of the bidding for the construction and move forward. So
we do need this done as soon as possible. Without one set of bathrooms, it's not easy, I'm sure.
exactly.
Okay.
Did we make I don't think we made a signatory copy, did we? Signature copy? Is there one to be signed? Because
I think we know.
both the board president, the secretary of the board, and the district superintendent all have to sign that one. It is in there? Okay,
We'll
thank
do
you.
that
Sorry.
before we leave.
Yeah, because they are, they're sitting, they'll be sitting in the parking lot tomorrow and ready to come in to do especially the asbestos, because they've already put in for the waiver. It's been applied for, the Illinois Department of Public Health. They've got a window to do this, and they have to start their work tomorrow. Otherwise, we have to go through the whole 10-day process. So,
Any other questions?
so this resolution is just for the State Board of Education, saying that we are asking the bidding requirements to be exempt because of this emergency situation.
And we don't
That's all
have
this is.
the weighted time frame now, they could be like starting tomorrow,
Yes.
without it being sent there.
Yes, yeah, it's already been approved. We have to have the resolution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looking for board
we're the
approval.
final step.
Right.
Okay, I missed that.
Yes. The board members votes against and votes in favor. We just have to make sure that that's on.
Fill that out.
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
All right, roll call, please.
Giddens,
Aye.
Kegel, Valregan, Tyler,
Aye.
Griner,
Aye.
Bailey.
Aye, motion carried.
Now this one.
All right, now we need a motion regarding the asbestos abatement.
Yes.
I'll make the motion to approve the M&O Environmental Company Service agreement for the asbestos abatement of the girls' restroom in the amount of $12,400.
I thought I took that off.
You did.
No, it's on
I know it is. I'm sorry, that came
Is
up
that because
too.
of the
here. And
bond?
it's also, but it's also on here.
I know it is, but that is not gonna be correct.
Okay.
Because of the bonding?
No, it's got nothing to do with the bonds. This is not the total amount.
Just leave them off.
Yeah, just
The
leave
girls'
the amount
restroom,
off. If you have to put something, put not to exceed $20,000,
There we go.
okay?
That sounds good.
Okay, because this 12.4 does not include some of the things that they've been finding these past couple days. That's been our problem. They are finding more and more and more things. And,
Is 20 gonna be enough?
the 20 will be enough. He assured, well, okay. But he assured me,
25.
Thousand.
he assured me that it wouldn't go over 20, for the bathroom. That's just the bathroom. That's not the other two offices that will come later. We've got serious issues, but let's also remember that I haven't gotten a determination from the insurance company yet as to coverage on this claim. I can't see how they're going to deny the claim, but they'll start picking apart as to, bits and pieces what they're gonna pay and what we have to pay
Is,
and blah, blah, blah.
is this the
So,
one where the girls' bathroom where the tile came up because
Yeah.
of the linoleum came up and the glue came undone?
Yeah, all the water got
Because of the
underneath
flood,
everything and it started crumbling when they dried it out. When Service Master dried it out, the asbestos tile around the linoleum started to crumble, making it friable, making it a containment issue. So that's why this thing, 12.4 is, that was what he gave me February 3rd, but now on February 9th, we've
Running into
other things.
Okay.
Yeah.
In a building that old, it's gonna happen.
Mrs. Bailey, I'd like to amend that to not to exceed 25,000 because we are closing that area off and employees and students will be around and I know it's containment and I don't want them to stop
Right.
waiting for the board to meet to approve the additional funds.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, she
Um,
says so.
Yes. All right. Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Giddens,
Aye.
Kegel, Reagan, Tyler, Griner, Bailey.
Motion carried.
They will start tomorrow, third shift tomorrow, or second shift, I'm sorry. They're trying to come in and do things from the 3 to 10 time frame. So,
I'm sorry, in all that confusion, I forgot to ask you again about the
Oh,
bonding.
yeah, the bond, you're not bonded? I mean, the bonds are not.
What bonding are you talking about?
bonds are not included. Bonding is performance bonds,
Okay,
as if they screw the work up or they do it wrong. There's no bond for us to go back after them on. We have to
Okay.
go back after them as a contract and work completion and workmanship.
Okay.
Rather than going after the bond, we have to go after the company.
I'm
That's what that means.
We've done work for us several times.
Right. But I didn't know which bonds he was
Sure.
talking.
Yeah. M&O Environmental Company is the company that you've used since 80-something. So,
And I do appreciate the school calling, telling parents, giving them a heads up. It was very nice, I think we all got that. Kind of changing the subject, but Mrs. Griner brought it up. It used to be Alert Now, now it's something else. Blackboard. Did they change their name or did we change companies? Do you know?
they changed their name.
Okay,
Sorry.
all right, it just came to me, so. All right, written communications.
Yes, I have a thank you card. Thank you for your kind expression of sympathy. Creve Coeur School District Board of Education, we deeply appreciate your thoughtfulness and thank you for most sincerely the Walton, Fry, and Holderness families. Thank you for the beautiful planner arrangement, Stephanie Walton.
All right, reminders of upcoming events. We have the Pace Chili Supper, February 19th. from 5 to 8. The brochure, I sent you an email from IASB. Did everyone have a chance to look at it? It's okay, so that I can, okay. Please look at it in your email tonight, get back to me so I can okay it.
What did you put as the student population?
Whatever Mrs. Cornwell
660.
put.
I think 660.
Okay, it's 638.
We didn't do that part, she did it.
Well, we just this
Okay.
week did the average the 3 month average attendance, so
Okay.
638. No, that's not right, is it?
No, it's
No, it's
538.
80.
Our fall housing
Okay,
was 582.
Okay.
The second total, when we did that, is the average daily attendance is 530 something, so. Our attendance,
It's
our,
so
our
okay, so
student.
582 is the housing,
Mhm.
okay, all housing,
Quite a few
Yep.
absenteeism. But
okay, I can make that change.
And
Wow.
that is there's a 70 student drop in 3 years.
It's been dropping
Ever since, yeah, for
yeah, it's
a long time.
forever.
3 years.
All right. I want to know who would like to go to the IASB dinner meeting on March 2nd. That is in District 51 in Washington, so that we can have Mrs. Walton make the reservations. Mr. Giddens?
No.
Okay. Ms. Tyler? Okay. Ms. Reagan? On a Wednesday.
I know, I was just thinking of the content that they were talking about. Because they're gonna have,
was pretty
that's what I was thinking, they have
It was
another
current,
school.
For a change,
It was
Right.
discipline, I believe.
Yes, yeah, I think I'll go.
Yes.
yes, I'll go. You don't have,
She can't do it.
okay. Okay, I thought you needed to know the time, I'm sorry. Okay. All right, so you have 3 down, and we'll get with Miss Reagan and see if she can. Mr. Aldridge, I'm sorry, do you want to go? I just figured he'd already told her.
Yeah, I will look,
Okay.
and make sure that it fits.
Of course. You're with her every day, it's easier for you to tell her.
Exactly.
Okay, I want to update everyone real quick. This is just a need to know for board stuff. Back in March, well, no, I'm sorry, when was this? July. This is on an OMA that Mr. Giddens filed. And this is from Lisa Madigan. The determination is issued pursuant to section of the open, whatever it is, Illinois Act. For reasons explained below, the Public Access Bureau concludes that the Creve Coeur School District Board of Education failed to provide sufficient advance notice that it would take final action at its July 1st, 2014 meeting to solicit bids for the custodial service vendors. So had we went through with that, we would have been in violation. It was stopped, so we're not. On the other one, it does say that we adequately indicated on the meeting agenda that it would approve the posting of all new staff members. That one, the board did correct. The first one, we did not. So that's just a heads up to the board members. Even though the board president and superintendent makes the agenda, it's just as much your responsibility to make sure we're right. So just future, if you want, I can, did I not explain that very well?
I'm trying to remember.
2014.
It was, yeah,
Right. Okay.
it was when we were
No, I
doing
know.
the
Yeah, I know.
custodians.
I just didn't understand why you were.
Well, they just need to know.
Yeah,
You know, we
It's
don't,
taken them this long too.
this long.
We need to know if it's
To
a
decide on
violation,
it.
because a lot of times they'll say, well,
It's March, that's last
Oh,
year.
never
Last year.
Yeah.
It's
that's-
March.
Yeah,
that's-
okay.
March 16, 2015, that's what I'm saying, it was a year ago, I don't know.
I know,
we
but
never
I
got
just
those-
happened to think about it, and the board needs to know things
we
like
never got
that.
those results last March, 2015.
Oh, well, you can,
I mean, I wasn't privy to that we were in violation from 2014.
I just wanted to bring it up because.
I mean, you guys weren't on the board, I'm sorry.
Right. Okay. All right, that's That's all I have. Presentations and suggestions by board members. Mr. Giddens is gonna update us on, he went to IASB.
Workshop, it's
Workshop?
mostly about data and things like that. They condensed I believe, a full-day workshop into 3 hours. The most important thing I learned that evening, and I think everybody needs to know, GEDs. Kids that drop out and get GEDs, extremely hard to get now. They didn't explain why, but later I thought about it. Is it the Common Core? This weekend I looked up, Common Core's got them. In 2013, I seen something where 590,000, this is nationwide, 590,000 GEDs. 2014, 59,000, 10%. But the presenter talked about, the one that gave me a copy of that cartoon, or had a similar cartoon. So this is it. Public schools is it. We don't have kids dropping out of school and later getting their act together and returning, getting GEDs. They can't pass them. Or they're lost when they try to go back to school, and it is the Common Core that's getting them. They're not familiar with probably the terminology and everything else. So we got to work hard. Boards, school district, everything's got to work hard while we got them now. Don't count on something to catch them. The other thing, I brought a similar cartoon. This one had an explanation about equality and equity. He stressed that, and then we went into a lot of details in that, and we went through diagrams that Mr. Jokic was talking about. We did talk about diagrams where you can spot check, and I've been doing that. And we talk about poverty and all this data. And they stressed using data, not just the report cards, but using other data. They didn't get into the 5 essentials. They brought up a couple of things talking about dropout rates. If you ever go to a workshop, I recommend when you sit down to the table, any workshop, and then all of a sudden the rest of the table is high school, politely excuse yourself and move to another table. They have much different issues, so when we were working at the table, they're dealing with high school issues, and I'm thinking grade school.
Right, hard to relate.
Yeah, so I would have been better off. I now know that, so I recommend. So, I mean, and they talk about getting data on a lot of your decisions you make. Don't just take something and run with it. Just like tonight, we're asking Mr. Jokic for some more detail. He may not have thought of it or got, it's going to help us with making our decisions.
Worthwhile then?
It was, first hour, half hour, was a little off, but then, and then a little bit of work things. And I learned that.
Okay, that's good.
Set with elementary, grade schools, not with high school.
Right. All right, thank you. Mr. Aldridge.
Well, we kind of talked about the LaSalle school damage. So the focus is to get the bathroom back in usable condition. In conversations with Mr. Vital, our architect, we should be able to have a quick turnaround on the materials purchased to put down new flooring, new bathroom partitions, to reset the stools and everything. So there's a projected date, February 22nd, but that is, I wrote this before other things have gotten discovered, so that is our hope, but we're moving forward as quickly as possible. So we can only move as fast as materials can be ordered, delivered, and set into place by the different contractors that have to do things.
Okay,
So,
the architect will take care of contractors
yes.
who comes in to,
Yes.
say, lay the linoleum, for
Yes.
example. Okay.
Yes. So
And
that
the
is all.
registry.
That's all being done through him, and that's why the resolution gives us the ability to move without the public bidding. So he's already engaging in giving different contractors proposals, so. Moving forward. Now, when we get to the speech offices, as I said, we may not get to those until spring break, even if then, when we pulled the ceiling down, the office, those two offices had sheetrock behind them that was used, that used the mudding joint compound has asbestos in it. So all of the sheetrock, 2 layers thick, are asbestos laden, and they have to be, the whole room is gonna have to be gutted out. The thing with that is when we looked into the suspended ceiling, even though they have put sheetrock on top of sheetrock, they did not go up, and so they only went 7.5 feet. And they only went 8 feet up with the sheetrock and suspended the ceiling 6 inches down. So what we have is another 7.5 feet up to the roof. That is wooden structure. So not only do we have asbestos, we have a wooden structure that is going to have to be contained with fireboard and all of those things, and they'll have to use metal studs to create the new walls because of the fire codes. So, you know, I'm like, Larry, we're gonna have to pull the roof down and because the roof joists, and he's like, no, what we have to do is we have to contain it with fire rated sheetrock and do a containment and all of these things. So that's what I mean. The more they get into it, the more things they're finding that are the problem. I have been in contact, well, not really. I have called and left and emails and left messages with the insurance claims analyst at Liberty Mutual, but she's not returning any of my calls or my email. So I finally just reached out to the independent adjuster, the guy who's writing the report for her, and I said, look, you gotta get back out here because we're just finding things. He came out the 2nd or 3rd day and looked around, took some measurements, and you know, he'll just say, well, you got this much paint, you got this much ceiling tile, you got 2 light bulbs, and you know, that's how he's gonna do his report. Well, that's not gonna cover anywhere near the extent of damage that and repair and cost it's gonna take for us to put this thing back together. So Liberty Mutual is right now, I don't know, avoiding my calls, I guess is a way to put it. So I don't know, you know, at least this guy is gonna be coming back out, or he's gonna be in contact with the claims analyst to say, hey, look, I gotta go back out there. So we'll see what happens. What? You wanna call? Will they take your call? It's rough.
I can see a big old non-renewal notice coming. What's our insurance renewal?
Annually,
July.
July.
See, they need a 60-day notice.
So, I don't know. I can't see how the claim would be denied, given the circumstances and how it happened. But there are, you know, there are going to be things where they're going to say, well, we're not responsible for that. We're not responsible for that. We're not responsible for that. And we'll just have to go back and fight them and talk and try to discuss. And then, you know, if it becomes an issue where we can't resolve it and can't settle it, then you'll need to bring Mr. Triggs on board to take care of that. So, all right, health insurance. We met with, insurance, we got a lot of it. The health insurance, we had our consultant finding meeting. Included a summary and some documentation provided by the consultant. This was only 5 or 6 pages of the entire 100-page document that he produced for us. But these are the actual meat of the situation. If the district desires to remain self-insured, it's going to require monthly payments of no less than $12,000 increase per month, or a 21% increase just to remain solvent. So that would be what you're looking at as far as remaining self-insured. If the district engages in a company plan, the savings will be well over $200,000 a year. What I was disappointed in all of this is that the information brought to us by this consultant really is no different than the information that we received from our agent, Keith Crowe, 15 months ago. So this is where you're at. Mrs. Radovich asked me to get a copy of, or she requested, the health insurance claims history forms, the history forms that you employees are going to have to fill out. So I had Eric, our consultant, go back to Undland, and he received one. And my issue with that was that it was a form that was specific to a company. It was United Health, United Healthcare. It was a specific form for that company. I said, Eric, that's not what I want. So what we ended up getting was the generic form printed and put out by the Illinois Department of Insurance Regulation. So it's just a standardized generic form that we can take and use, get a big stack of them from all of our employees and shuttle them around to different agencies to get actual quotes. All right, so we will take it to Undland since they're involved here, and we'll say, here you go. And we'll take our big stack and we'll go to Cecil Wyman, because he was involved in this way back when, and we'll go, here you go. And then we'll go to Keith Crowe, and we'll go, here you go. Find us something. Find us the best deals out there that matches this plan to the letter. And they have found plans that match this thing pretty doggone close. So, and even at that, we're looking at a $200,000 savings a year. So, I guess I don't see it as a real, brain twister to say that we need to have an insurance company in a paid for plan rather than remaining self-insured. Those days are gone. Where you had a lot more freedom and flexibility, those days are gone. The Affordable Care Act put all those things aside, and we just need to move forward. So that's my opinion. That doesn't mean that's what the insurance committee and the labor negotiator, I don't know how this thing got all mashed up and who's what anymore, but that's what we need to have, is each of those agencies give us who they work with. Because Unwin works with a couple different insurance companies. Keith Crowe works with a couple different insurance companies, and I think we should be able to look at them all and say, and I don't know who Cecil works with, but I think we should be able to see, all the healthcare companies that are out there, how do they match up with the plans, benefits that we have, and what's our bottom line. So, Pekin Insurance and UHC and
United
John
Healthcare,
Deere.
River Valley, United Healthcare.
Just
These
United
are both
Health.
United Healthcare,
Right.
right, just United Healthcare, River Valley.
Right. So the thing that I would like to point out in your health comparison chart, though, sorry, is on that chart where it says current mutual medical, at the bottom there, the monthly premium, preliminary monthly preliminary, it says 60,194.14. Well, add 12,000 to that.
At least, right, at least,
That's just to get at our current claims level.
right, not
To
next year.
remain solvent, yes, for this year, add 12,000 to that monthly amount. So you can see 72,000 versus 40,000 by the other two. So it's pretty plain. So we'll see once we get the information back from employees and how that's gonna transpire, then we'll move it all forward.
Is there any problem with that, with employees filling out the forms? Because I know it was an issue before.
I agree. I think that's why Ms. Radovich was being proactive and saying, can we get the form so that we can look at it and we can, try to pave the way a little bit and get the employees to understand that, the information in there, this is what they're gonna be asking, and kind of smooth the way a little bit. What we can also do is have Mr. Christian come back in and, meet with anyone, any of the plan participants, any employees who have, specific questions about the form. We can do that as well. So we will move that forward as quickly as possible and see where we can get it. All right. The phone system. Our current Centrex phone system contract is due to expire this year. All right. Secretarial staff, building administrators, the IT consultants, we have all had continual issues with the Centrex phone system. In order for me to call Stephanie from my office, I pick up the phone, I hit 600, that line, or that call goes down to the switching station in East Peoria, and then comes back here to go to her desk. That's our Centrex system. Okay? The lines that we have are so crossed over the years. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just as offices have moved, as people have moved, as things have changed and switched around and offices reconfigured and all those kind of things, nobody really knows and understands what our phone system is anymore. And we can't even get AT&T or anybody to come out here they'll come out and look at it, but they'll say, well, that's not us, that's Centrex. Or they'll say, there's nothing we can do about that part of it, that's internal wires. And we've got a lot of issues when it comes down to that. Right now, I have investigated, given all of our technology updates, all the things that we've been doing, is to look at either a digital or voice over internet protocol type situation to get rid of all this internal wired stuff. What we would do is, I would pick up my phone, hit 600, and it would ring directly to Stephanie's phone through our wireless internet server. Bing, bing, bing. So some of the new systems have a lot of features, as you can imagine. Some of the features we all get upset about when we call in trying to get somebody. This is like, please listen because our menu has changed. Well, but we would be able to put a voicemail box. We would be able to program voicemail boxes for all of the teachers, so that the secretary would not have to take a message and run down or put it in their box or hope to wait that they see and hope that they see the teacher later in the day, those kind of things. They could just send that parent, that vendor, that textbook salesman, they could send them to their voicemail. All right? We could have that automated attendance lines rather than a tape recorded voice thing. Then we have to push the button. And, because I can imagine that people that call the district office when Stephanie and Shelley are at lunch or on break, as is, you know, their right, I don't walk up here and answer the phones. So most of the time, people just hang up. They just get tired of it, and they don't want to leave a message on our answering machine. But if there was an automated system, it'd be able to go a lot smoother. Classroom to office, checking voicemails. You know, some of the systems that we looked at have, you know, allow teachers or employees that have voicemail boxes, basically they call it twinning onto their cell phones, so that they can do the same thing on their cell phone, check their voicemails and everything through the system that way. So it is a convenience. What I'd like to do is to, as I said in here, bring a couple of the vendors in to first meet with basically the secretarial staff, because they're the ones that are going to use in the bigger systems, the bigger phones, and some of the capabilities that they have, because there is voicemail to email. So you can get a notice, an email notice that, you know, the voicemail was left. Actually, it even goes some of the systems go so far as to type the message into an email as well. Okay, so it's almost a speech to text kind of thing. So there are a lot of whiz bangs that go along with these systems, and right now our current Centrex cost is about $525 a month without any hardware. We purchase our own phone bases and headsets or handsets. You know, STL is our cloud server. They also have a telecom division, and I'm speaking with them right now. So what I'd like to do is to bring a couple of those companies in to show the positives of their brands and their equipment to the people that are going to use it the most, and then get a recommendation from them and have vendors come in and present to the board what a current system would be. So, otherwise, you will end up rolling over your Centrex contract for another 3 years, and you will be stuck with this antiquated system that you have now for the next 3 years.
So does that expire June, July?
Well, if I could actually find someone at AT&T to talk to, I'd be able to know, because the original contract goes back to 2001. So, yeah, but you've had amendments and rollovers and different contexts. It started out with SBC, you know, and through all the changes and everything. So we don't even have someone that we can call to ask about these things, which is really frustrating as well. So there is no service component to the Centrex system, but it's, I believe, what I was looking at was April. There was an April date, which is fine, because what we can do is, if I find somebody, we will just not enter into if the board's not able to act quickly enough, we can just enter into a 1-year contract rather than a 3-year rollover. So,
One quick question.
ask Stephanie.
You might know this.
No.
Will this give us any enhanced 911 coverage?
Yes, that was a very good question that I had to make sure, because we have to have that. Yes, there will be a dedicated line that comes into each facility, so that we have that. Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a must be. Yes, sir.
Can I suggest a second line for our alarm system? I've had voice VoIP for I don't know how many years now, and they warn me, don't put my alarm on it. and I learned out why.
Yeah,
So you want a landline for your alarm systems.
right.
Hmm.
So, that is our plan and process for this. And hopefully we can get proposals put together and back to the board quickly, and maybe we can move this and get this done this year. I know that my office staff would dearly love a change in the system that we have. Am I speaking out of turn?
No.
Anything you want to add?
Complaining?
Huh?
I haven't heard many complaints.
We're just kind of used to it. But actually, like, if his phone's ringing, I can't answer his phone. You know, how I used to be able to pick it up.
Yeah, rolled over.
Well, it rolls over, but instead of sitting there and listening to it ring and ring and ring, I used to be able to hit it, flash, and then
Right.
19, and I could pick up his phone. Can't do that anymore, since we moved back over here. So we don't know if they cut the line, one of our lines, but no, we can't answer, just pick up and answer somebody else's phone if it's ringing. So,
My mom had said whenever she'd have to call a vendor or something, she couldn't if someone in the office was on the phone.
Mhm.
They
Right.
share a line. Right?
A party line. Party line. All right, so you'll look into that.
Okay.
All right.
Draft 2016-2017 school calendar. This is a draft. It came out of my meeting with the local superintendents. This is what the high school is in discussions over with their staff and their board. Our only difference are the change in our school improvement days. So we have that, but the actual calendar and days for breaks and everything, they align with the high school. Yep, that's, all three local superintendents, all four of us, kind of sit down when it comes to the calendar and said, okay, what do you do in high school? Because they're the dog, we're the tail. So, they will start their freshmen on the Friday before we would start, but they always do their freshmen the day or two ahead anyway. And then I think they come back, everybody comes back to high school on the 16th. Then we have our 2 days to start with, August 15th. You can see on the calendar, the darkened days that are darkened there are early out days. What we've done is through discussions in staff meetings, discussions in building leadership team meetings, discussions in district leadership team meetings, we have looked at eliminating the half-day sick days and going to a 2-hour early dismissal on these Wednesdays. As you can see, they're kind of highlighted there. So it would be a 2-hour, it would be standardized. Parents would know, okay? And we would still have to bank our time to do that, like you have to bank your time for sick days. What this does is that it actually gives us 10 more hours during the school day for professional development. We would use one of these days in the month for building-based professional development and curriculum work, and then the other day per month would be for professional development at the building level, or I'm sorry, at the district level, given all of the trainings that are mandatory by the State Board of Education, the things that we have to be trained on. So this is giving us a lot more time, actually, by doing it this way. The parents that were kind of focus group discussed with this, they like this better than having to try to have a whole half a day for childcare, that if it is, set and they know that these are the days that it's gonna happen, they're appreciative of that. So, staff thought that it was a better use of time for students, because we could work the scheduling to do a compressed schedule, rather than missing a half a day. You would do a compressed schedule on those Wednesdays on your early out, and each class would be 34 minutes at the junior high rather than, the 56 or whatever it is. And you would compress it so that you get your early outs that way. So you can see that Christmas break is there. The one point of contention, not contention, but the one point of discussion was having an actual spring break rather than having a break at Easter time in April, because Easter is
April 16th.
exactly April 16th, so it's pushed back a little bit late. So if you look at it, students would be in school from February 21st until April 13th. Okay? So, given that amount of time, it just seemed to the superintendents and to staff and through discussions, it just seemed that having a break there in approximately, the midpoint of that big long jag of days made sense for, just for student clarity, keeping them going, keeping them functioning. And then you have your non-attendance days on the Good Friday and the Monday after Easter. So that puts us at a last attendance day before Memorial Day, and May 26th, if we don't have any snow days or other excuse days. So, this is, like I said, this is a draft because I can't bring it to you as a vote-on thing yet, because I don't know, they're having discussions at the high school, so that'll come next month.
Can I ask a question? You said 2 hours early out on Wednesdays. Does that mean from 3 o'clock? Or does it mean when they really get out now? Like Parkview lets out like at 2:35.
Right.
So does it, because it says right here 8:25 to 3. So what time is early out would that be? Would it be 12:30 or would it be 1 o'clock?
Okay. This, 8:25 to 3 p.m. is LaSalle.
Okay,
So from 3 o'clock, we take 2 hours off that.
so it'd be 1.
It
And
would be
then
an
Parkview would
early
get out
out.
at 12:30.
That's 12:45.
I think they get out at 2:35, so 12.
So
What's the
it's
difference
still
between
be
that and a
doing
half a
lunch.
day?
Lunch, we're gonna serve a lunch.
Well, and the problem is when the parents, whether only have 6 days they have to worry about a setter, instead of like 14 days they have to worry about a setter. I mean, if I was working, I probably couldn't get off early every Wednesday, so I would have to get a setter every other Wednesday.
The parents that we talked to, these were the ones that it made
Can I
more
ask how
sense
many
to
parents
them.
you talked to?
Me personally, 2.
I mean, I don't know, I'm just thinking from a parent standpoint, I never liked the high school going in an hour late on Wednesdays. I mean,
Well, you gotta do something, so.
I would rather go in an hour late, at least the high school kids might be home with them, versus, I mean, I'm not saying I wanna do that, but I'm just saying, at least they would have someone at home with them, because the high school doesn't go in an hour late every Wednesday, so at least they would have maybe the high school kid could watch the sibling, this way there's no one, because the high school's still in, and
This is
What
hard
would you
on the
like?
working parents.
it's hard on the parents,
What would you
yes.
like?
I don't,
Well, along those same lines, will latchkey be available on those Wednesdays?
that's
We
up
need
to
to check.
them, that's not our program.
Could we check into that though and see
And
if
that's
they
a
would
cost
be?
to the parents.
I know, but at least it's an option.
Right.
Well,
If
and
they
I
won't
got,
offer it, then it's not.
well, then I
They
got,
were on the SIP days.
I understand you're getting 10 more hours, but the students are now getting 10 less hours of instruction.
But if you look down there at accumulated days,
Uh-huh.
183 days.
I'm just still saying,
So
before it was 18 hours.
we have those 2 days built back into the schedule.
Okay, you got me there, never mind.
So what do you want? I don't care, we can do whatever you want. It's not gonna satisfy everybody. You're not gonna come up with anything that's gonna satisfy everyone.
Well, I'm thinking,
So,
how much instruction can you get done for 2 hours, especially if you're gonna do district-wide every other one? By the time someone drives here or there,
They can work on the map within grade levels.
I know, but I'm just saying, they said district-wide, so everyone would have to drive to one spot.
True.
So by the time the kids.
they gotta have lunch anyway. I mean, the employees have to have lunch. You have to give them their lunch.
So how much are you gonna get done
About the same that we get done for a half a day.
for 3 hours?
Same. But you've gotta meet those mandates from the state, if nothing else.
I
I know.
don't like the 2 hours early out every other Wednesday. Just don't like it.
So we can go back to half-day SIP days.
I do even a whole day sick day, I don't care.
Can't
but
do
I
that
just-
because we can't bank enough minutes to do a whole day. That's not, it's
Do
not
that
allowed.
too.
Well, I mean, you know, that way they
I
can
know.
have the whole day to do.
It's not allowed. Under the state.
Teacher conferences are the same.
Yes, ma'am. Corresponding.
So you think, just to like clarify that in, like if you change it to the 2 hours, you'll get as much done as you would a normal 3-hour day just because of how it's set up? Just to like clarify, because I didn't understand what you meant.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we will. Because contractually, the teachers have that half hour after
Right.
school's out, so we use that as well.
Oh, okay.
So we build that in, and that gets, is it gonna be, 6 3 hours, as opposed to 14 2 hours? Are you gonna get as much done in 2 hours as opposed to 3 hours? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. It depends on the attitudes. It depends on how much the, what the topics are. Depends on, a lot of different things. It's 60 minutes less, I can tell you that, but I can't tell you what's gonna
Well, and the
create a
question
fight.
is, when we were talking to the teachers, they were talking about, many times if you have an activity or sports, the teachers are already doing them after school, even on the short days.
Well,
What's gonna happen with that? Are they?
They're gonna know that those days, they're not going to be able to have
They're
their,
not scheduled.
That's what I'm
schedule
saying,
that's
so
during-
no, right, cause
not before.
that's what I was gonna say, are they gonna say, oh, well, we're practicing,
nope, it's not gonna be allowed.
okay? I mean, cause I was just talking about that, cause now it's allowed, so,
It's not gonna be allowed. That kinda came out of that meeting, that's what I heard anyway. If the board, because I'm only hearing one person.
yeah, it's
if-
just
if
me,
the
I'm the only
board-
one that has a problem with it,
If
so.
the board
Crazy about it.
wants something different, then you're gonna have to go back and start all over. The days in and out, you really don't have a lot of choice because that's the high school,
Right,
all right? If you, as a board, don't like 2-hour early dismissals, then you need to say so, and then we can go back and tell the teachers, the board didn't like this, so we gotta come up with something new.
There's not a lot of difference between a half a day and this 2 hours. But I get
I'd rather be in school and cram it all in a short period of time, at least they're in school. I know it's inconvenient, but
and do you really think they're gonna get a lot of instruction for 30 minutes?
Are they gonna get a lot of instruction for half a day? I hear
No,
no.
sorry.
Better than
No.
I
half
hear
a
no.
day.
No, I agree.
It's not
It's
much
better, it's better
difference.
than half a day.
There's a lot of parents that don't send them on the half days. Attendance is way down, isn't it?
Yeah. But if we can't do the full day, that's what I wanted, was the full day.
Yeah, I agree.
understand that. So, this is an alternative, I guess.
So it's a half an hour difference, is that what?
It's an hour difference.
It's an hour, it is an hour, yeah, for
Because they
that.
had 6 half days.
Is that including lunch,
Yeah,
that hour?
yes.
Mhm.
So then really, the instruction time's almost the same, because they're getting lunch, and last time we weren't getting lunch.
So attendance, you're saying somewhere along the line, we figured out attendance drops on a half day, so now we're gonna make it 14 days where attendance drops.
See, they're getting,
I don't-
No,
I don't
about it.
find that. don't
I think
that's
you
gonna
are.
find-
I mean,
Yeah,
I would probably be one of those parents.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't,
Go
well,
ahead.
part of it,
Okay.
well, part of it is a setter. You don't have a
they're
setter.
getting, they're getting lunch, they're getting out early. I think they're gonna come, the LaSalle kids, instead of getting out at 3, they're gonna get out at 1, and they're still gonna get lunch. I think it'll be fine.
And for some of them it is, but some of them, they might not have a setter, so they might have to take their setter to maybe Pekin, North Pekin, East Peoria. So they might have to say, okay, they're not going to school today because my setter can't come pick them up, I have to drop them off the whole day and I have to work.
that's what I'm hearing in data.
Mm-hmm.
Half of
Yeah,
their
I should make
grandparents
your-
are picking them up
Make your
anyways.
decisions.
Pardon?
Half of their grandparents aren't, most of the grandparents picking them up anyway.
And it might make a hazard on the grandparent then, they have to pick them up at 1 o'clock.
Every other week they're picking them up or whatever instead of.
Grandparents, siblings.
We're gonna take them home. The bus.
Yeah,
So
we're gonna
let's
take them
just
home, but
decide.
who's there?
And then if they don't have a setter, if they have to get a setter, they have to go to the setter's house or someone has to pick them up.
Okay.
A first grader,
You know,
I don't think a
that
kindergarten,
is-
I don't think a kindergarten, if no one's, kindergarten bus driver, is a bus driver allowed to leave a kindergarten?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, they
Okay,
didn't
'cause I
bus
heard
stop.
it different. But do we want a kindergarten, second grader, first grader going home for a couple hours waiting for, not everybody has big brother, big sister in high school, or the middle school or whatever. Yeah, that 14 days is bothering me now. And we know attendance is dropping because of probably the sewer situation.
Okay. So am I hearing the board wants to go back to the half day?
I'm in favor of the half day.
What else?
I'm in favor of the half day, or at least poll a majority of your parents and say what they want. I mean, 2 parents does not speak for the district. I don't speak for the district, I don't have a kid here, but I would like to know what the parents would rather have.
I know it's hard on working parents.
It would be hard on me.
Okay, 14 days compared to, if we did the half day.
6.
7?
6.
6. Right here, has one.
Wow.
I'm not against it, I just would rather the parents have a voice.
And how do we get that? How do you get that?
Chili supper,
How
ask
do you
them.
get that?
Chili supper when they walk in, what would you prefer? I mean, it's not a formal survey, but it is something, other than just asking 2 parents, how do you get the 2 parents?
The 2 parents are on the district leadership team. That's how we got those. So,
I would
there you
ask, Kathy Scrape, just go around and ask at the chili supper.
I would ask at the chili supper, I don't mind
See
asking.
what you get.
Get your little table and set you up front.
Yeah, there's a survey, what would you like?
So,
You can do it on a tablet, just have a click.
That's true.
Yes, Mr. Giddens?
Because our state funding is based on average attendance, and if it drops, because we're doing
But
14
you-
as opposed to 6.
You get to pick your days, correct? But even
Once,
so,
but-
yeah.
But if,
trying
look
to-
at every,
Yeah, every other week.
Well, they did
You're
say,
still gonna have
yeah,
it.
consistent.
You're still gonna have the half day, you're gonna have 6 of them.
I guess I just think differently, I don't understand how that's gonna make attendance drop. I'd still make my kid go if it was an hour.
Oh, hell, that's up.
That's just
Kids
me.
from School.
I would.
but they're saying they already know that the attendance drops on those days. That,
that was my understanding, let's put it that way.
not data.
okay,
I don't have
Okay.
that data, so,
okay.
Can you bring
So
us
what are we
to
aligning
Mr.
this
Aldridge,
with
can you give us
then? I
that?
mean, are we aligning this with the high school, or are we aligning this with somebody else's
No, the
opinion?
high school doesn't do this. The high school is early, they go 1 hour late on Wednesdays.
Every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday, 1
Every
hour
Wednesday.
late.
1 hour later arrival.
But that's why I say, at least the high school kids would be home with them.
And they're,
No, they're still up and down even though they're an hour late.
8:15 or something like that.
Okay,
the bus
we're
arrives,
assuming that our kids have high school students that live with them.
yeah. Or you could hire a high school kid to come over.
the bus for the high school runs at like 7:45, even on late days.
Okay, but I'm just saying,
Right?
here there's no
No, eight.
option,
8, not
because they're still in
7:45.
school until 3 o'clock. You can't even get a high school kid to come over and watch them.
Okay, give Mr. Aldridge some direction. What are we wanting?
Give us the data on the half days,
Okay, can you do
on
that?
our attendance.
For how long? You want last year, this year?
Looks like we've a couple years.
Can you bring that back to us after you get that information, please?
It's already written.
Okay. All right. Enough of the school calendar, architect proposals.
You have the list of the architects, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them, who submitted their proposals. What I would suggest is that the Building Grounds Committee review the packets, because most of them are, thick packets of information, almost, 2 or 3 times what the auditor packet was.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot to it. So I would, I don't care if the full board wants to take a retreat day and go through each and every one of them. That's completely your prerogative. But I think it'd be easier just to have the Buildings and Grounds Committee review the packets and bring a recommendation to the board.
Everybody okay with that? The packets are up here if you wanna come up and go through them.
Mrs. Fagan and who else?
Mrs. Reagan? Yes? So you two need to set up a meeting? Later down on the agenda? We are at band director. Update.
We posted the position on the Illinois Education Job Bank. We received no resumes so far. Any come in today? I wasn't in this office today. No. Okay. So, I think you're gonna find it extremely hard to find a part-time band instructor. I would suggest that the Board of Education consider and have discussions about a full-time band instructor for the junior high next year. You're not gonna find anybody full-time this year. I'm thinking of new graduates, people coming out of college, and hopefully ready for next year. But since this has been a part-time TRS 100-day kind of position, I'm sure that the board will want to look at that position to determine whether or not it is feasible to be a full-time band position. So,
Okay, what is currently running now says experience. Is that correct? Experienced? Okay,
I'd like to suggest it, because it's only been posted for a week
okay.
or 8 days.
Okay,
That's all it was posted for. And it's asking for experience. And we talked about students that just graduated that may be qualified, well, you just excluded them. And we're hoping that, we're counting on people to go look at a job site. What are we gonna do for this year? I'd like to take the experience out of that line. And the other thing that's important, we don't even have a start date in there. There's half a dozen band postings online right now in this job bank. We're the only one that don't have a start date. One of them's asking to start March 3rd because of an employee taking a leave of absence.
how would you like it written?
Strike that last sentence.
Okay, go ahead and
How about you
That's
doing your
okay.
job?
that's all we do.
I don't know where you got that we wanted experience in that. We're looking for somebody this year. This year. Why don't we put that? Everybody in there has a start date except for Creve Coeur. When I read this, I might be thinking of next year.
Okay.
We don't know anybody's hunting for right now, that we have a vacant position that needs filled right now.
We need to say something about that they have grad, that they have a degree or something to
If
that
that's
effect.
I said just strike the last sentence where it calls for experience.
Okay,
And a start date there as soon as possible.
immediately,
We're trying to fill a vacancy for this school year.
right.
And identify it for this school year only because we're so late in the school year. We have to give the notice.
Mhm.
I did talk to Phil out at Care Music when I was out there Saturday, and he said that he is also looking for a band director for us.
That's nice. Mrs. Walton, and you,
You have to have a specific date. You can't put
Immediately,
or.
or as soon as
Oh,
possible.
As soon as possible. You have that, it
Yeah.
asks you
Can't-
for a.
you have a
it's-
specific
It's a
date.
drop down and.
You don't have to, okay,
March
put a
1st.
date in there. We don't have a date.
okay. Well,
mean,
I think
have
at
it
the
right here.
time she put it on there, we still had a band director.
Yes, yes.
Right,
And so it would make a difference. Okay,
and I mean, you read the one, I know March 1st is because you got someone taking a leave of absence. If we identify in there
okay.
that it's,
They can start next
So
Monday,
we can strike experience, take
yes.
that out, and what do you want your start date?
Mr. Giddens, pick a date,
Pick a date.
if you had to put a date in there tonight.
Okay.
4 weeks, okay.
And I know the others, application deadline means the application deadline is we're not gonna, the board's not gonna discuss it until after March, the first meeting in March, the way this reads.
Applications go to the superintendent though,
I
right?
understand, but we have a board meeting on or February 22nd, and
Okay,
we're accepting
For
applications
approval.
all the way up to 26th.
That's the board.
Well, yeah, and I think that's probably because, just in case we don't get anyone,
right.
we
But
gotta
if you
keep
get a
accepting
couple
it.
applications in there, we're not gonna consider them for March. And if they haven't been around here, I don't know how long it takes to get a background. What I'm seeing is I don't wanna, right now, the kids are out. And I didn't wanna see that happen, but it happened. How long is it gonna stay that way? If we keep setting the bar too high for this year, we're probably not gonna get one, because you're not talking about anybody this year, you're talking about next year already. I'm worried about this year.
Well, we can try. They are hard to get, I know that
I'm-
from
I
previous
get that,
years.
especially if it's part-time.
Exactly.
But if anybody's looked on the line this past week, well, Creve Coeur's out because they're wanting experience. Didn't apply.
Okay.
We
But I
lost
think
them.
we were looking at a part-time, which usually you get experience because they're retired.
Right,
But if someone had just graduated in December,
That is true.
right, we'd take the job just to get in, foot in the door.
Okay,
Mrs.
so
Walton,
strike experience, start date today, when do you want the applications in?
application deadline,
Yeah.
do what a lot of
They
school
start
districts,
today.
a lot of school districts leave that blank. If you go online and look at job
oh
bank,
no, why would you wanna do that?
why do they leave them blank?
Uh-huh.
Because as soon as they get someone in they're satisfied with, they take it to the board and hire.
You got a start date of tomorrow. And your applications are,
And you got your application deadline at the end of February. I know it's confusing.
I would do the next board meeting on both of them. I mean, you need a date there, otherwise they're just going
Okay,
to
but-
put it off.
But you could extend the date. If we don't get anybody in the next board meeting, we could open it up and extend.
Yeah, they kept coming down for a couple of weeks when we put a deadline in there. That was our experience last fall, that's why it was getting frustrating. We're trying to fill positions, they go up, they're up there for a couple of weeks, and then they're back down for a couple of weeks, waiting for the board to meet to tell them to put them back up again.
Okay, then we need a date. What dates would you like?
For the deadline,
Mm-hmm.
whatever date you want, I blank like the other school districts.
Okay,
Leave it blank.
yes.
That way you don't, it stays up until we fill the position.
Okay.
Is it, I mean, am I the only one?
Sometimes it pushes them if you give them a date, otherwise they just ignore it.
Well, I mean,
I'll do it next week.
go
I'll do it
online
next
and
week.
look, I mean, go online and look
Because
and
even
and
if you
just look under
start dating
band.
immediately, they're gonna know
Right.
they want someone now.
Right. Okay, that'll work.
To fill a vacancy immediately, replacing that retirement, that way they know
Okay, at risk of failure letters.
Stephanie, are you clear?
Okay,
Strike experience,
Okay.
start date today, and leave blank our application deadline.
that's what he said.
There you go. At risk of failure letters were sent out by LaSalle. It's an official notice letter to all parents and students who are at risk of failure or retention to give them an early warning that your child is not doing up to grade level success. So we're asking parents to, we're giving them the notice that we need their involvement as well. We need them. I don't know, Dr. Tennell had not responded yet, so.
Can I ask a
What?
question on, bounce off that? Since we just approved this AP one, does this mean that we follow this? The one that we moved from the policy to an AP, where it has the promotion standards in there?
that AP 2016.
Yeah. That was just good.
That would be correct. So, a student, in order to be promoted to first grade, must know 100% of their letters. They must know 80% of sounds of letters. They must know numbers 1 through 20 identified and right. They must be able to write a simple sentence with inventive spellings. They must be able to demonstrate listening skills through a variety of listening worksheets and or activities. They must know their personal information, shapes, and can identify them, and all other skills named on the report card, such as sequencing, rhyming, etc., at an 80% level of understanding and show proper social development as shown on the report card under social skills. And then each other grade level has different criteria as well.
That is not a change. We just moved it from policy, which should have been followed, to AP, so nothing's changed. That's where it's at. Okay.
As opposed to,
May I ask one thing else?
Sure.
These letters are going out now, so can the board get just a count by grade, I'm only curious by grade level, how many kindergarten, first, second?
Possible retentions.
Just numbers.
Yes, I would like that also, from both schools.
Yep.
Knowing it's a possible retention.
Right, that's when they're going to be
Right.
retained. That will help them with summer school as well.
Right.
Is it standard for every, like, for a D to be passing?
Yes.
Taking it, Catherine doesn't know that.
Not
She
where
never
she
got a
lived.
D.
It wasn't acceptable where she lived.
Right.
It would have been
so to
acceptable,
clarify, I guess.
it would have been acceptable if she was trying her best.
Summer school plan, or be back on policy.
No, I'll just make sure to send this out specifically to staff so they can see that this is as of 2016, so that there is no misunderstanding as to what the promotion standards are.
Oh, this is not a new standard, it's been
I
there.
understand that,
So,
I just
okay.
don't think.
But it seems that-
aware.
it seems that
We have a lot of
Because
new
concern.
teachers, we have a lot of new teachers.
We do.
Didn't we decide that we made that policy when Dr. Rowe was here?
Yes, we do.
I found the minutes.
I remember.
Somebody found the minutes.
I've included the summer school plan in your board packets for discussion. So that's item G. Invite the lowest 20% MAP scores and retention candidates, approximately 90 students. And that's going off of our tier intervention. That's where we came up with that number. Use ClassWorks, which is computerized instruction that students use in their classrooms now for differentiation and other instruction as well. 30 minutes for breakfast, 3 hours of instruction, 30 minutes for lunch, 4 days per week, 6 weeks. Through discussions with staff at staff meetings and administration, the idea of the school ending for having a week break after school ends, going for 3 weeks, have a week break there around the July 4th holiday, go back another 3 weeks, and then a break before school starts again. 15 students in each class, so 6 teachers for teaching, 2 bus drivers, since we're talking about 90 students, 3 cooks, 2 regulars, 1 head cook for breakfast and lunch, principal or lead teacher, and a secretary. So that would all fall within that $35,000 to $40,000 range that I've given you previously. Yes, no, maybe so.
Any questions, comments?
So the only instruction would be ClassWorks, or that's,
That's what's on the curriculum.
The classwork is based on our MAP scores, excuse me, and does individual lesson plans and instruction plans for those individual students. So a teacher who may not have had that student, you're not trying to bring 5 students together and teach a skill that one student may already have and one student not have. What we would do is have the ClassWorks instruction for probably a majority of the time, and then have breakout things that, you know, activities. The kids aren't going to be able to sit in front of the computer for 3 hours. No. Yeah.
Okay, and I was wondering, how are you gonna, I mean, do you know how you do this? Because you have like 6 teachers, but how many grade levels are we gonna be covering?
K through 8.
K through 8?
Well, kindergartners going into 1st grade,
Okay, so
or
first
maybe,
grade.
maybe not going into 1st
Yeah.
grade.
Well, I just wondered, I mean, you know, since there's 6 teachers, is you're gonna have a group, one teacher with, like, maybe
Well,
kindergarten
I
and first?
I can't tell you that because it'll depend on the
The lowest scores.
the range of the scores. We may have, you know, 7 or 8 3rd graders that have to
Right.
be there, and only 2 2nd graders.
So you'll have them lumped.
Yeah, we'd have to do something like that. But that's why the ClassWorks, being the main instructional practice, will hit each and every one of those students.
Isn't ClassWorks a computer program that's kind of free that parents could get on at home?
No, we pay a lot of money
Money for ClassWorks?
for ClassWorks.
I must be thinking about that. Okay, I was just wondering how that would work.
Yeah, because it's seamless with our math scores. So we download, when those students take those scores, or take those tests and we get the scores, they're downloaded into ClassWorks. And so that migration of the scores goes right into that student's profile in ClassWorks. And then ClassWorks generates an individual learning plan for that student and where they need to be and what they need to be doing next. And they don't move on unless they've mastered that, and it sends them back for more practice. And
I was wondering about an enrichment program. Is there any way we could do an enrichment program with this as well? I mean, because they always
these
say,
are kids who are failing and at risk of failure.
I know, but can't we do an enrichment as well? I mean, because we always, lots of times the teachers came to us and said, you have these kids that are like right here, that if you just give them more instructions, they will help pull up your scores.
Okay,
I'm just
so
wondering if we, I'm just
tell me,
asking.
tell me what you're
I don't have
thinking.
anything.
Okay, you're
I
not
just-
talking about enriched are you talking about,
Because
I
like,
heard you say, Ms. Reagan, enrichment, and I was thinking, you're taking the 3 hours of instruction and giving them music or art.
oh, no, I'm thinking
No,
maybe if
okay.
you have other kids who could learn at a higher level, bring them in. Like someone had said, like, do like a horticultural class, like East Peoria, I mean, like ICC does, and I don't know, I mean, I
Okay,
don't know if the board would be
that's-
for that, but I don't
okay.
know if we can incorporate that in here
Years
as
ago,
well.
they were building rockets.
Right, this would be, yeah, Mr.
Well, that's where we have the circus, that's where we have the science exploration that they're gonna be doing at the elementary school for summer. So they're gonna have a summer camp, but it's only gonna be, 4 days for the elementary kids.
So you know they were doing that, that's pretty awesome.
It's because we haven't gotten it all set up yet.
Okay, so
so.
you wouldn't need to have that because you're doing,
But that's not for,
well, the science exploration, I mean, that sounds like an enrichment.
yeah, it is, but it's gonna be more than just the kids who score high.
Right, it could be
It's gonna
everyone,
Right.
which is great.
But we haven't finalized that, Mr. McCormick's still working on getting that program set. So,
And you have to feed them both breakfast and lunch.
Is my question.
I was just gonna ask.
yeah.
I thought we only had to feed them once.
I thought so too.
The program, the summer meals program, we get a higher reimbursement rate if we do both. And
Okay.
our kids in the summer, I mean,
And we have to feed the whole community.
yes, we do, through age 18. I doubt that we will have community, right?
Right.
But,
Yeah.
but, yeah, as far as that's concerned, it's still on a reimbursement basis. And it's, Ms. Davis is working on that. She has some seminars that she's gonna be going to for the State Board of Education, doing seminars on, filling out all the forms, making sure that we've got all of the federal requirements and doing all of those things, so.
That's already done, though, right?
All those
Board
forms.
forms, that ought to be done? I thought the deadline was February 1st.
Well, it's not February 1st because the seminars for completing those forms aren't until February 26th.
I thought she went in October.
Find out about the program, right?
That's all they did?
To find out, are you required? What are the requirements? Do
Okay.
you meet the standards and those things?
Okay, I thought they were just gonna do the forms then.
You know,
Because last year you said the deadline was February 1, it was too late, we couldn't have a summer program.
To be exempt. It was to be exempt.
From
the
Oh, it was
waiver.
exempt?
From-
Yes,
Oh,
the waiver.
exempt, okay. And I have one question on the
Okay.
eighth, you mentioned K through eighth. Eighth graders, that would only be
going in 7th graders going into 8th grade.
okay. Or an eighth grader that might be repeating.
That is subject to retention.
And refresh me on classwork, does that do reading and math?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know where you're gonna have this at yet?
Nope.
I know that was
We may have 3 weeks here and 3 weeks at Parkview.
And that'll be okay.
Logistics is tough.
Right.
Logistics is tough. Since Homewood's all cleaned up now, maybe we look at doing things over there. That will mean coordinating with the Safe School so that their materials are packed away and so that, we're
There's no
not
kitchen.
using,
Hey, I'm getting,
true. They would have to use a kitchen here,
And
pack it over
pack
there.
it down
Yeah,
there.
right.
I'm getting, Sacramento looking pretty sticky.
With the village, that's something that
I've been
would
cleaning out their
be-
classrooms and everything. There's no desk, but
Sacre Coeur might be an option then?
be an option. We've got a garage full of desks again.
the bathrooms aren't too bad. They're having the lunchroom area
There is a kitchen, exactly, there is a gym,
being redone.
right?
Just one.
Okay.
Right now, we're not doing anything with it.
I will,
I just hired my son-in-law to teach my two grandsons math. He's doing tutoring class.
Okay.
So I said, if you don't have any in my house, you can go over there. My husband is working there.
Okay.
That's very nice of you.
So that
Guys to clean that up.
is,
She's over there working through the city, so.
I'm attending the village meeting, village trustee meeting tomorrow night in regard to the Economic Development Council. So I will, kind of float that idea out there with the trustees and see what kind of response we might get. Maybe they'd be interested in that.
Well, because they have internet though, access and things like that, so I
They
mean,
just
that's
put-
probably
they
not
just
a.
put- They just put internet in there.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Yours over there.
Wow.
Yeah, but you
Well, I don't
Computers
know,
and-
they just did in the
Yeah, but you're
office.
still-
They
Yeah,
just did in the
service.
office, I don't know
Oh.
if they did. Because they moved a couple of their offices for the,
The village.
street department,
Street
or
department.
street department and something else, over in a couple of the offices.
Oh,
So they
okay.
hooked up, Wi-Fi over there,
Right.
and cable, but I don't know about the classrooms.
Alright, so before we
Sorry,
go.
get off subject.
Well, it's alright, because that's a
No.
great,
That was part of it.
great
I mean,
idea.
it is a school, it has functioning restrooms and a kitchen.
Right.
And Jim.
Well, kind of,
Drinking fountains.
No.
fast drinking fountain, yeah.
I will, I'll investigate that with village trustees.
For a while.
Flushing toilets, so you got that.
Well, maybe it's a follow-up.
Before we move any more forward with this, what is the board's thinking on this structure, this setup? Because I don't wanna start the planning process and getting teachers involved and things like that. If 6 weeks later, the board doesn't wanna do this, or, you know, you wanna scratch something out and you don't want 2 bus drivers, you only want 1.5. You know, I need to know those things now.
Isn't this what we wanted? Randy?
Well, wait a minute, circus, they're doing the circus.
Yes.
Doesn't the circus, they run a bus? Can't we coincide when they do the circus so that we're not running 2 buses and we could run just a bus and get the kids for both?
This was a grant, wasn't it, last year?
It is a grant, but that way we're not paying for it. We can still run them for both reasons. Sometimes there's only 2 kids on that bus, I've seen it.
That's right.
So why don't we just run it for both?
I can't answer her, I don't know anything about the grant.
I don't know that there is any restrictions on transportation. There isn't a line item, it's not broken up like that. The grant is the grant, and how we use it. In the application, we say transportation.
Okay,
So as
so,
long as we're transporting kids to the circus, back and forth,
so summer school, isn't this gonna be pretty much kind of a requirement, or just a suggestion?
It's a suggestion, you can't require them.
But once they start, they're
A strong
staying in.
requirement?
I mean, you can't make them go to summer school. Some parents might be gone the whole summer. I mean, they might have agreement, custody agreement, they have to go to the parents' house out of state. I mean, you just can't make them.
well, but you can retain their kid if they don't go to summer school.
Exactly.
Okay, that's, I guess. what
That's
I'm-
not what the retention before, it would help them.
And do you have a plan for students that start in equipment? That's one of the concerns. You know, do you go to the next child on the list, or you give them so many days they miss
I
and
don't-
they're out?
I don't think there's any, I don't think a waiting list or a rotation of students in and out makes any sense. Either these identified students, these are the ones that we've identified, this is the group of students that we're going to give instruction to. And if they do not participate, and if they choose to be retained, then we would go down the list of our eligible students. Okay,
What if
up
Susan-
front. But if she comes for a week and then doesn't come again, I don't know that that's gonna help any students.
But what if Susie goes
Coming
to
back.
summer school and she was gonna be retained, but she goes to summer school and summer school didn't help, and she really still needs to be retained. Does she get passed through, or do we retain her?
Well, you're gonna have to have some kind of a criteria or an assessment, I suppose.
Maybe based off the assessment, she should have met all these requirements, but she still did not meet those. She still is not understanding, so you don't just pass her on, she still needs to be retained. But we have other issues. We still retain her, we don't just pass her on just because she completed summer school,
Okay.
right?
But you aren't gonna start that this year, are you? No notice?
What do you mean?
Start what?
If you're going to retain them?
Well, you're gonna retain them based on this year's assessment score, not based on summer school.
Right.
They're already being retained.
Okay,
And then
all right.
with summer school, it's like a chance to maybe.
To move on, but
Right.
if she still goes to summer school and she still
Struggling,
is struggling because we can't move her on,
then she should be.
she should
retained.
still be retained. We can't just automatically move her on to the next
Just like
grade
this
just
year.
because she went to summer school.
That way, when she gets into the next grade, if she's still struggling, holding the class back, not doing the homework, we're just hurting. We're trying to fill a gap and get them caught up, right?
Yeah,
Right.
because,
Right.
I mean, we were hoping that going to summer school was going to help her move forward.
When you write a little extra coach, maybe some, you know, one-on-one instruction, it might.
It might help, but maybe it doesn't help that child.
But I'd like to go back to what Pam was saying. So what if you have like 20 kids who drop out and then like after the third week, do we get in, for the next 3 weeks, do we get more kids or we just started where we're at?
What
That
would you like?
spot's just vacant.
No, I'm asking what
I was
the
saying that
plan.
spot's just vacant.
How would you like it? That's why I'm,
Well,
that's
if
why
it's
you're here.
if it's class works, and you're saying it's telling each child at their own pace, if they get 3 weeks of summer school, that's better than none.
But they're still retained.
Oh, that's fine.
If-
What are you gonna do with the
Not
opening?
if they-
Lee?
uh,
What are you gonna do with the opening then? Are you gonna fill it with another
what
child
he's
or just
saying.
leave it open?
I definitely, the first week, okay, my child's supposed to go, I decide a week after school's out, I'm not gonna send him, I'm not gonna make him get up and go. We just lost, there's an empty seat for 6 weeks, and that's, it doesn't cost us any more to call the next child. Doesn't cost us any more.
With this week break in the middle, the second set of 3 weeks, you may have quite a few fall
Don't
off
go
of
back.
that.
Fall off then with that break.
I have a waiting list.
Yeah. And then just like, cause it's a lot.
So you want 6 solid weeks?
I like the gap.
I think the gap is
The
nice.
gap's fine, I just think if I was gonna drop, that's where I would drop.
Right.
You know, I did just think we might see more kids drop at that point.
And then for the next 3 weeks, you have, like, say, 10 kids drop.
So maybe we should give the kids an incentive though, like some type of little hook to get them to come back, or
Exactly.
prize
I like
or
that.
something to get them to
Right,
come
or
back.
yeah, try to tell them at the end they'll have an ice cream party or, I mean, just
Whatever they
something
come
to
up
give
There
them.
needs to be a
Field
hook to
trip,
get them to come
etc.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something
They
to
did that
them to
one year.
complete the 6 weeks.
They went to Chicago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting you go to Chicago.
Yeah.
I didn't mean that. I'm just saying years ago they did.
Incentive
Something.
to come
Right.
back.
I like that. Okay, you wanna continue with the plan? That was what you were looking for, correct? Mr. Aldridge? Okay.
Do we have an answer on filling the seats if they don't come back? The last couple of weeks may not be helpful, but if they don't, I don't know. What do y'all think? He's asking for input now before we get it all down in concrete.
Personally, I think, like, if you know the week before, like, it starts, if someone says, oh, I changed my mind, I'm not sending the kid, then you would go to the next. But then if they drop out like a week and a half in, it might be hard to fill. But with that week gap, I think if, like, you know that students weren't coming a week and a half in, then you could call parents and be like, hey, we're starting summer school again, like the second round next week. Would you, like, you be interested in sending your child? Instead of just like, oh, this guy came for the first week and is not coming for the last
Yeah,
5.
do you not fill slots for 6 weeks just because you dropped out the first week?
Right, because then there's like 3 weeks that another child could take advantage of. Whether they're in the bottom 20% or not, it's still an improvement somehow.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And do we have an administrator that's gonna go over this on the plan?
He's right here. Yeah.
There is no names
He
attached,
didn't
there's no names attached.
But he
no.
said they need one. This is it. So, I mean, because we already have the criteria that we're looking at to invite, and you're saying that approximately 90.
That's just the percentages of our tier 2 and tier 3 students. So those would be the students most at risk for retention, approximately 90 students.
Oh, I like this. I like this plan. And if we're gonna do it, I think we need.
Aren't we going to see if we could get like the math teachers and the interventionalists to sign up for summer school? I mean, because they're,
It has to
Our
be
math is
open
big.
position, it has to be open. It's my understanding in the collective bargaining agreement, this would be the same as any other position. And it would have to be an open position, posted, and anyone who wants to fill that position
Then you get
has
to
the right
choose.
to.
you get to choose if there's like 10 or 15 that sign up.
We would interview and try to determine the best
Right,
candidates.
who's the best candidate, right. Especially like if there's a, you know, first grade teacher, they know first grade better than.
7th grade, 9th.
Yeah,
We're not all
exactly.
junior high teachers.
So,
Sure.
what was the final determination on if a student drops out after 3 days?
Yes, we're gonna go to the next tier.
Are we gonna do it immediately though?
Yes.
Yes.
Immediately.
They're up there on a computer, it's self-paced, they're not gonna,
Right,
they're not gonna disrupt the class.
You're not gonna hold up anyone else.
I just didn't know if that was what we decided on.
Understand the password.
Call the next student on the list.
So what happens if we have 90 approximate kids and we only get 5 kids to sign up?
And we don't.
That's a possibility.
Then we only do one summer school class.
Or can we
If-
offer
if-
it?
I bet you'll have a union issue if you start saying,
Well, we only have
promised
5
we
kids.
promised you a
They
job.
hire 6 teachers.
Well,
We
let's
hired
not hire
you.
6, maybe we should only hire 4, and if we need more, add 2 more. And it's one of those
You'll
we
get
won't
more
know
than 5
until after.
children.
I'm thinking we'll
We
get
need
90.
to go, we need to go with this plan.
Yeah.
So with this plan, if we only get 5 kids,
This is
then
what
we
we've
talk
been,
about that
this is what
Chicago
we've
field
been,
trip.
this is what
And
we've
invite
been
the whole
griping
school.
about.
That's what
This is
I'm
what
thinking.
we've been saying we need for these
Science and
kids.
Industry
Let's try
Museum.
it.
Yeah.
Well,
We
I
need to
think,
try it.
I think more than, I think get it.
We've got the math interventionists now. This is the next thing that we've been griping about. I think we need to try it to prove to people that, and prove to our kids that this is what we.
I'm still
been
stuck
griping
on,
about.
I'm stuck on the criteria for retention and the summer school instruction. I'm trying to figure out how class works, and maybe we do map again to determine some growth. We make some projected growth assessments for students, because you're not having the same, you're not having math instruction, you're not having reading instruction, you're not having social studies, you're not having science, you're not having all of those classes that go into whether or not the student's being retained. So how do we say, well, you went through that 6 weeks, we're real glad you went through that 6 weeks of summer school, but you know what, you're still going back to 2nd grade.
Because you
So-
didn't pass the other subjects. I see where you're coming from,
Yeah,
because
I
you
do
didn't pass
too.
the other subjects.
And maybe we should say the
I
kids.
just need to know, because you're gonna get calls, you're gonna get calls.
They get retained because they didn't pass the other subjects, but we're offering summer school in the
Yeah.
math and language arts.
To help them out, yeah.
Yeah.
They're still get
Then
retained.
it's then their retention has nothing.
Right.
So,
Right,
You're,
there's no
you're
reason.
losing your leverage at that point.
Right,
You have leverage because you're helping them for the next time they go through
No.
second grade.
and like obviously, parents want, like, I
I
just
see
feel
what
like
you're-
as, I don't know, but like as a parent, if your child was struggling and you knew that they were gonna not go on to the next grade, but you're still saying, hey, your child is still struggling in these subjects and didn't do well, they're still gonna get retained, but they're really behind and they need to be in these classes, like, I feel like if you cared about your child, you would send them to summer school if you could, like, just for their well-being and their future.
I see
You're gonna
where
get a
Mr.
lot more if you say if they go to summer school, then they're not going to.
But we don't have that in policy, so how can we do this now?
Do not have it in policy, you are correct.
So how can we say, oh, we're gonna bypass retention without any formative assessments in summer school, just because you showed up?
And do we make policy middle of the year?
No. I don't know. I just.
What about if the kids are failing other subjects, then they're gonna repeat the grade anyways? Move on to the next child on the list. That's only struggling in language arts and,
True.
But you're still gonna have to assess them at the end of the summer school.
But they're still going on, it's not about the retention at this point, it's just the one struggling in those.
they're struggling in one of those two subjects, that's all we're offering.
Mr. Aldridge, could you bring us back some ideas that we could look at? Some choices maybe?
we will try.
Because I think we're too far apart here and we need to get some happy medium and give you some direction. And I don't think it's really fair to make policy halfway through the year. I mean,
I don't know what we can do and what we can say now as far as retention and summer school.
How many, well, let me see how many kids are gonna be retained. Last year we didn't have any, so it's probably not an issue.
it may be a new point.
Is that what summer school is?
No,
So summer school
we still
is
have
to
summer
help.
school.
Okay.
So maybe we should take the retention part out of it, at least for this year, until we can get policy set up.
And then knowing it going in, and so that it's fair to everybody. I mean, halfway through the
The way
year is
I'm
not
looking at it
good.
now, if you put it in policy now,
Mhm.
it would be giving them the chance to not be retained.
Right.
So it's a positive for the parent
Mhm.
in the student.
That is true.
The problem is if you put that in policy, then you're saying you're gonna do summer school every year.
Right.
And you're setting up future boards to do that every year.
No,
You
you
have
could,
to put it if summer
Right,
school
but
is
it
being
used to
held.
be in there years ago. It was if summer school.
Right.
So how do you determine if?
Exactly.
Budget, most budget.
Yeah.
I mean, if you couldn't afford to have summer school, then you had an option, a way to opt out.
Right. Okay, let's throw that part back to the policy committee if they wanna take that on, just think about it.
Okay.
So you're asking administration for criteria for the retention after the summer instruction?
Okay, do we
Is
wanna,
that what,
do we wanna push that or not?
Are we
On this summer,
allowed
summer.
to do that?
go to summer school or you're retained? Sure.
As long as
High
we write
school does
policy.
it.
What?
High school does it.
I know, but like it's not in policy currently, so are we allowed to just be like, oh, let's change it now? Because don't they have to like sign the handbook?
Mm-hmm.
Is it that signing the policies?
But like,
I'm looking at it different, instead of you're gonna be retained unless you go to summer school, I'm looking at it, you're gonna be retained. We're gonna give you an option to go to summer school, and you might not be retained. Now, the assessment part, I have no clue how to
And then the
to
assessment,
them.
if they're just failing like the,
But we haven't had summer school around here for many, many years.
Right.
right,
and we've needed it here recently at least.
If it works.
I just,
Yeah.
but I
Yes.
don't,
I don't agree with the, because you attend, you automatically don't get.
And that's what Brenda
I
said.
don't think you should automatically just like, oh, you came and you could have stayed at the computer for 30 hours and not been any improvement. Right.
Well, that's what Brenda's saying. She said if they still don't understand it.
I think we all agree on that.
So then the criteria could be, if it's in the, if they had the possibility to move on, then could we say, okay, let's see if their map test improves.
And that's what he's
Isn't
trying to
that
see
what
if they
he's-
could do.
But see, the thing is, that little Susie might be the type of kid that needs to be in school all year round because, you know, she just is that type of a kid, but yet she does need those, you know, that week break every couple of weeks or whatever. But she still needs to be in school, because that's the type of kid she is.
I'll need to put a caveat on there because, I don't know if if the MAP program runs during the summer.
Right, that's.
I don't know that. And then if it does, I know there's gonna be a cost to that.
For
So
a year.
that's not in my,
Right.
my budget forecast
Is there
there.
something else we could use? I mean,
Well, that's
Why
what
should
I
they
gotta,
have that?
that's
Right.
what we gotta try, kind of have to
Yeah.
figure out, but trying to come up with ideas and then come back here and then we'll see what we can do.
If we're all focusing in on moving the district forward with our kids and concerned about the kids and
We don't wanna just.
having ideas and.
Bottom line, our AP here says makes the building principal makes the final decision for a student's retention. With input from the classroom teacher, parent, guardian, or other school personnel. It's not gonna make any difference if it's during the year or summer.
So it could be the same.
It could be the
Okay.
same. That way we don't have to worry about it.
So
If you wanna make policy before next year and get all the criteria, I think that would work. But for now, this would get us by. All right, any other questions on summer school? All right. Committee reports. Building and grounds, you need to schedule a meeting.
Definitely, and I will talk to them and
Okay. All right, that will work.
we'll put it out there.
Yeah, in case anybody wants to come. All right, what's the subject going to be? First the architects, then Homewood? You do Homewood later.
Yeah.
Architects now? Okay. All right, policy, Mr. Giddens?
I actually have questions for you and Savannah. I started going through chapter 7, the ones that we haven't looked at.
Okay,
There's not a great deal
good.
of chapter 7 except for until it hit August of 2015, 2014, whatever it was. Do you want me to just go ahead and email Mrs. Reagan what I think's under there, or do you want to review what I'm doing? I can't email it to you, we'll have to meet. Savannah, you and me, or do you want me to just
I can
say,
come to a meeting if you
separate this
want.
out and send it to her so she can call a meeting?
I-
We can call a meeting on ours and,
I don't call the meeting, I'm not the chair.
well,
But I could come to your meeting,
That way she would know.
yeah.
okay.
Okay, so you're going to schedule a meeting on the student part of the policy amendment?
Yeah, let me find out what day, because
Okay.
Deanna said we're doing something next Tuesday.
Okay. Just email us then.
I know when we can meet, okay.
All right. Technology.
I don't think we need a meeting, but I do have a question for Mr. Holdridge to find out for me. When do we give the parents the Skyward passwords now? It used to be 6 weeks in, I think.
Mhm.
I thought we just talked about that, it was the first parent teacher.
Right, and it's like 6 weeks after school starts. So, could you check on that for me? See if we can find a way to get it to the parents earlier in the year, and maybe check and see how many parents are actually using the system.
Well, depends on when you get them.
I know, but like right now, a teacher can
Okay.
sign on and say, so many parents have been on in the last
Right.
month, something like that. We need to make sure that system's being used by our parents and maybe publicize it a little bit more
Right.
throughout the year.
Push it. So they aren't ready for the parent-teacher advisory committee quite yet. That's usually handbook, right? Okay. It's a good idea. If you come to the meetings and you would already have it, you'd be ready to go to the committee. All right, are there any visitors wishing to address the board?
I only have one thing to say.
Yes.
Well, I have two, but I'm gonna keep my mouth shut tonight.
Mrs. Smallberger?
Yeah, Mrs. Smolder, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
When you guys were talking about District 150 doing that math program, when he was presenting that, my grandkids go to District 150, and to get past the common language thing and technology, the teachers send out a packet that explains like the line drafts and all that. They use the language that they use in school, it's sent out to the parents, so the parents have it ahead of time, they don't have to go on the website. And
Comes
they
with all
come,
of those lessons.
they come home in packets.
Okay.
There's like 40 pages, 30 or 40 pages for each lesson. That is worksheets for the kids, worksheets to send home to the parents and like that. So if a parent needs additional resources, it comes with parental resources.
Yeah, and
in all
it's
of
really
that, so.
Cool.
Okay.
Say that again?
It's really cool
Say
because,
that again?
seriously, when Gabby comes over and I help her with her homework, I just go to that packet. If it says something that I don't know by talking to the teachers, I go right to that packet and I know, okay, this is what this means, this is what we need to do.
Okay, so it's pretty easy to understand. then.
And they do go on the website. The kids do.
All right. Good. Anyone else? All right. Need a motion for executive session, please?
Make a motion to enter into executive session for employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body, collective bargaining matters between the public body and the exclusive representation of the certified employees, and review executive session minutes from January 12th, January 26th, the regular meeting.
Second. Giddens?
Aye.
Cagle? Aye. Captain Reagan? Aye. Val Reagan?
Aye.
Tyler? Aye. Griner?
Aye.
Bailey?
Aye, motion carried. Need a motion to resume regular session,
Make
please?
a motion to resume regular session at 10:35.
Second.
Roll call.
Giddens,
Aye.
Gagel, Catherine Reagan,
Aye.
Val Reagan.
Aye.
Tyler,
Aye.
Griner, aye, Bailey.
Aye, motion carried. In executive session, we did discuss employment. Okay, we need a motion.
Make the motion to place Leslie Isbell on the substitute teachers list.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Giddens,
Aye.
Gagel, Catherine Reagan,
Aye.
Val Reagan. Tyler,
Aye.
Griner, aye, Bailey.
Aye, motion carried. Motion regarding executive session minutes.
Motion to accept executive session meeting minutes on January 12th, 2016, and January 26th, 2016 regular meetings.
Second.
Questions? Roll call.
Giddens,
Aye.
Gagel, Catherine Reagan,
Aye.
Val Reagan.
Aye.
Tyler,
Aye.
Griner, aye, Bailey.
Aye, motion carried. Anything else from the board? Make the motion we adjourn at 10:37.
Second.
Roll call.
Giddens,
Aye.
Gagel, Catherine Reagan, Val Reagan.
Aye.
Tyler,
Aye.
Griner, aye, Bailey.
Aye.
I
Motion
didn't say
carried.
no.
Meeting adjourned.